Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is right here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. I am very excited today to do an interview with former Sea Org member, former staff member of the IAS International Association of Scientologists, Leo Perez. I got for those of you who've been watching this channel for a while, you might remember I used to do a whole lot of really long form interviews. I am going to be doing a lot more of those again going forward. Some people love watching those multi-hour interviews. Some people prefer the smaller segments. If you are one of those people who prefer the smaller segments, then you will want to subscribe to my Growing Up in Scientology Clips channel, where for every one of my interviews, I'll be publishing a whole bunch of breakout segments on that channel. So without further ado, let me bring on the one and only Leo Perez. How's it going, Leo?
Hey, how's it going? Everything's good.
It's going good. It is so exciting to finally be able to do this chat. And, you know, I checked our email history. It's actually been over a year that we've been in touch with each other, which is pretty crazy. But we are going to have a lot of fun. You know, where exactly should we begin this story? By the way, you are the only Sea Org member former Sea Org member I've ever spoken with who was in the IAS, who was posted as a staff member of the IAS, and some of the info that you've shared with me is mind blowing. And that's one of the reasons I'm just so excited. One of the many reasons I'm so excited to do this interview. Where should we begin this story? How about this? How many years has it been since you've been out of the Sea organization?
All right, so I got out. It was during COVID. It was 2020. It was 2020. Okay. I think it was like May of 2020. So 4 years. Yeah.
So just over 4 years. Now, when you left the Sea organization, you weren't necessarily leaving Scientology at that point. And it can be a hard thing to really pinpoint accurately when someone officially ceases to be a Scientologist, because you've never officially been expelled from Scientology. But in your opinion, how long have you been out of Scientology?
That's much shorter. That's like a year that I, how do you say, like, just reject everything, started to reject everything. And I think the term that people use is mentally out, because even though you're physically out, you're still mentally in. So I was still mentally in for like 2.5, 3 years. And then I started finally sort of getting out of that mentally.
Yeah. Real quick, everyone knows I'm a stickler for audio things. I know you've got I'm hearing this weird echo behind you. Do you hear it? This like tinny noise. Do you hear it at all?
No, I don't.
It's almost like a guitar string getting plucked or something whenever you is that the mic stand?
Is it this? Is the mic stand? Yeah, because there's little springs on it. I might have touched it.
Let's keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Okay, so and we are going to go back to the beginning of your story, how you got into Scientology, how you got into the Sea organization. But when you left the Sea Org and you still considered yourself a Scientologist, what is it? What were some of the things for you that got you to cross that line from feeling like you were still a Scientologist to not being a Scientologist? What pushed you down that path? What was the main point?
I don't know if there was like a main thing or like there was a question that I had that I was like, okay, this question, if I don't have the answer to this, then it must not be good, which is where was all that money that I was funding going? Where are we actually using that money? If what I was seeing on the internet, that these campaigns that I thought were real are not, then where is the money going? And once I started seeing more and more online, I noticed that they have a lot of spending on PIs and lawyers, and they spend a lot of money on things that they don't tell the public or even Sea Org members. They don't. I think those are kind of like OSA things that nobody outside of OSA knows about who they're paying to, I don't know, to investigate things or to do. Yeah. So I started asking myself, like, where's that money going? And I think I started to answer it for myself when I saw how much money is going into just law stuff and court stuff, you know? And I was like, okay,
Right.
that has to be where it goes, because when people would ask us to specify, like, you know, because we're trying to get a donation, and they want to know, like, okay, well, where is it specifically going to go? And our sort of like general answer is that it goes into a war chest, and from that war chest, whatever campaign needs that money, we'll give to that campaign, because there's 13 different campaigns. But another purpose for the war chest is to protect Scientology from any like enemies of the church. So that's also like another purpose of the war chest. And they mentioned that in like one of the big events in the 80s where they got their religious freedom, religious tax exempt.
In 1993, the tax exempt status.
Yeah,
the war
when they
is
beat
over.
the IRS, the war is over event.
Mhm.
We would kind of explain to them that, like, if something like that were to ever happen again, where we need to defend our religion from, you know, I guess from taxes, that we would have the war chest to support us in those type of affairs. So, you know, being outside, you get to see that a lot of those affairs are actually going on. There's a lot of lawsuits and stuff going on.
So when you were working for the IAS, which, I mean, all the IAS does is raise money. They don't do anything but raise money, right?
Yeah, no, that's all we did. All we cared about was money. Every hour of every day, money. Yeah.
Leo, I just have to ask, is the mic stand continually getting hit?
Oh, yeah. This wire is hitting it. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Okay.
If I could just hold it. I'll hold this. There you go.
Okay, good.
Because I thought I was hitting it, and I was like, okay, I make sure I'm not hitting it. But now it's the wire, so I'll hold it.
So, I mean, you were in the IAS office. The IAS does nothing but raise money, right?
That's right.
So for you as an IAS staff member, what did you think the money was actually going towards?
I really thought that we were helping people with humanitarian campaigns. I really thought that.
You mentioned a moment ago, you said there's 13 different campaigns. Is that like a very specific, like that's actually, there was 13 different defined campaigns?
Yeah. That's what we say. I can't tell you off the top of my head, like all 13 of them, but like, for example, human rights campaign is like one of them, but then there's CCHR, which is another human rights campaign. So that's 2 human rights campaigns. And then there's human rights for the youth. So that's a 3rd campaign, which is like specifically like school packets that are given to schools. Well, that's what they say, but I don't think any schools are actually receiving any humanitarian human rights packets. But yeah, then there's like the Truth About Drugs campaign. There's the Scholastics campaign, where like they use the L. Ron Hubbard technology and all that to teach kids how to read.
Was the Volunteer Ministers one of those?
Yeah, Volunteers Ministers is another campaign.
Interesting. So all these things that in Scientology events you see these little promo videos for, these are all the different initiatives that the IAS pretends they're raising money for.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, anyone who actually works as a staff member at a Class 5 organization will tell you that whenever something needs to be done for one of those activities, they are asking Scientologists to directly donate to the org to pay for those activities. It sure as hell is not something anyone just asks the IAS for money for. In fact, in my entire 30 years in Scientology, I never even heard of a mechanism to request money from the IAS to fund any of these programs. When, when a disaster occurs and the volunteer ministers, an order comes down, send 5 volunteer ministers to this flood zone, people have to pay out of pocket for supplies and travel expenses. The IAS is not paying for anything. I don't even know how to ask the IAS for money, and I never did when I was in Scientology.
Well, that's news to me. I thought we were paying for the volunteer minister. But look, I did notice with the Way to Happiness campaign, we were not allowed to have Way to Happiness books to give out, even though that's one of our 13 campaigns. They always had to be purchased. People had to buy them. And if somebody wanted to do something like, oh, I'm going to go to some parade in Mexico City and give out Way to Happiness booklets, like an ambassador for the Way to Happiness would do something like that, or like an OT committee member would do something like that. They would have to buy a box of Way to Happiness books to do their event, their humanitarian event, their fourth dynamic activity, which is the fourth dynamic is the humanity dynamic in Scientology. And I thought that was weird. I was like, why can't you just go on to the waytohappiness.com and request a box of books? I thought that you could do that, because I thought that when I was funding for the money, that's what it was for, so that someone could go on the website and request a box of books. And actually, if you go on the website, that is the mechanism. There is each campaign has a website, and on each website there is an option to request materials. But it's an option to request materials. I've never heard of a story or anyone tell of a time where they actually requested and received any materials.
Right.
But yeah.
One of the things for me, as someone who was on staff and in the Sea Org for a long time, that's really interesting about your story is how you were recruited into the Sea Org after pretty much being a brand new Scientologist, and were recruited directly into the IAS, which is why for people who've been in Scientology for a while and are watching our interview, they're going to wonder, how is it that you were in the Sea Org, in the IAS, and you seem a little naive to the goings on in other areas of Scientology? And it's because you were recruited almost instantly after joining Scientology to be in the IAS, which is the IAS is one of the senior most bodies in Scientology. It really is at this point even senior to international management. Like the IAS answers to nobody in the Church of Scientology International. Yeah. And it's just one of the things that is really fascinating about your story. I want to share with everyone some photos that you have of your time in the Sea Org. So this is the staff. These are the staff members of the IAS office in LATAM, or Latin America. When you sent me these, first of all, I was shocked that there was this many people in the office. I also assumed that for the IAS office to be this big, this office had to be raking in the money. And also, just look at that head fundraiser. That is a guy who his aura is nobody F's with me because I make money. Like this guy exudes IAS confidence.
Yeah. That's a veteran right there. That's a Sea Org, more than 40 years in the Sea Org veteran.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so even though I assume this office must be raking in the money, I was shocked when you told me how little they actually make. What was the figure?
Our quota was 50,000 a week. We never hit that quota, not once when I was there, not once. Max we would make and it wasn't a good week. We never had a good week. Every week was a bad week. And the maximum we would get on average would be like 1,000 on average, sometimes a little bit more. Most of the time,
$1,000 raised per week.
A week amongst all those 7 people.
And not all 7, were all 7 of these people fundraisers?
No, this is the funniest part. None of these people are hatted or posted as a fundraiser. There is no fundraiser in the office. My post, and this it gets even funnier. My post was assistant fundraiser, but I didn't have a fundraiser to assist. The fundraiser hat or post was held from above by the head of the office, which is Giuliano, the older Sea Org member there in that picture. So I was basically his assistant. When someone would ask me, "Oh, what do you do?" Who are like public would ask me, what do you do in the Sea Org? I would say I'm Giuliano's assistant, because if I said I'm the fundraiser's assistant, there's no fundraiser. That doesn't make
So
any
who
sense.
are all these people? Let's go from left to right. Who's this woman on the far left with the dark hair, shoulder length?
That's Maru. Maru, I don't know her last name, but her name is Maru. She's Venezuelan, from Venezuela.
What was her job?
She was the events IC. So she put together like local events. But it would be like maybe one a month, max two.
Sure. And just fundraising events, right? I mean,
yeah, just fundraising events inside of the local orgs.
Okay. And one more time, the guy who ran the office, his name is Giuliano?
Yeah, Giuliano.
Okay.
So he's the I don't know what the post is, but I think it's office IC, but it doesn't sound like a very prestigious post, but I think that's what his post is, office IC.
Okay. And the I don't know, 30 to 40 something year old gentleman to the right of Giuliano.
That is Antonio. I almost forgot. Can't forget Antonio.
What's Antonio's post?
He is the FDSM officer.
FTSM?
FDSM. So there's FSMs, right? Field staff members. And they're supposed to
he's a field disseminator.
Yeah. He's the officer of the field disseminator. So he's in charge of the 5 field disseminators in the entire Latin American field.
So, for the watching public, a field disseminator is a public Scientologist who makes their living full-time getting other Scientologists to make donations to the IAS and collecting a sweet commission on all of the money that they help raise. In fact, the actor Michael Roberts, Michael Roberts is a Scientologist. He's been a full-time IAS field disseminator for decades now. He was in the movie Rain Man with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman. And Dustin Hoffman's character, I forget what his character is in the movie, but in the beginning of the movie, he's in some sort of a facility where he's being taken care of, like an assisted care facility. And there's a guy who works in the facility named Vern. And in the movie, Dustin Hoffman's character was like, this is Vern. This is my main man, Vern. This is my main man, Vern. And Vern is Michael Roberts.
Okay. Dang, I had to see that again.
Yeah. And so Michael Roberts is an actor. To Scientologists, they consider him a famous actor. Hollywood doesn't consider him a famous actor.
Yeah.
And he's just an example of a field disseminator. That's what he does all day long, is he lingers around the orgs, in the course rooms, in the HGCs, and gets people to donate to the IAS and makes commissions. Okay. So you called him an FDSM, field disseminator staff member?
Okay, this is weird. So I think that when it comes to like in the org for courses and stuff, it's FSM, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's field staff member, right? I thought it was field staff member.
Correct. So
for some reason, it's the exact same thing, but in the IAS office, they call it a FDSM, and the DSM stands for disseminator. So it's just FDSM. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, what's the woman front center right? What's her name?
So her name is Catherine. She was like HCO in the office. So she was like she had 2 posts actually. She was the public officer. So she was in charge of giving everybody their awards, their t-shirts and their keychains and stuff for donating.
Okay.
For example, an example here, I got a couple props. So she would give these out after making this beautiful shirt. We are the IAS. So she would give this out after making $1,000 donation. So this is $1,000 t-shirt right here.
Damn.
Yep. That's swag right there. That's IAS swag. So she did that, and then she was also like in charge of everyone in the office as like HCO, which I think that her post there was just ethics officer. So she held 2 posts, ethics officer and pub off.
Wow, how interesting. Okay, what's the funny Uncle Fester looking dude in the back? What's his name?
Man, I can't believe I know his name, Freddie. That's Freddie. So
Freddie Fester.
yeah, Freddie was in charge of the memberships, the free memberships. So the brand new public getting their first book, they get a free membership, and then the first memberships. So it's the
introductory. There's the 6-month introductory, and then there's the annual, and then there's the lifetime.
Annual, and then there's a lifetime. So he was in charge of annuals, lifetimes, and introductory. Those three.
So was he the membership officer, or did he have a different post title?
That's his title, membership officer.
Amazing. Okay, who's this woman that looks like she's passing a kidney stone in real time during this photograph?
Okay. Her name is going to be a little harder for me to remember because we just called her a nickname. We called her Mamichis, which is
Mamichis.
Mamichis is like little mama in Spanish, or like mom, like a kid would. No, a kid would not call their mom that. It just means mom. It means mother.
Like mommy, hey mommy, but mamichi.
Mamichi, yeah. So it's like little mama because it has a little swag to it. It's like little mama.
Like little mama, hey little
that's
mama.
That's what we call her, Mamichis. But I'm trying to remember her name because that's not her name. Come on.
Well, if anyone in the live chat or on the replay crew knows the name of that Sea Org member, drop it in there if you don't mind. What was her post, if you remember?
So she was the advance man. So she helped the events IC set up events and do call-ins for the events. Yeah.
So really the only guy, if I'm understanding this correctly, whose job it was to actually raise money was, I always forget his name. Georgie, what's his name?
Giuliano.
And then the membership officer, though, is also responsible for signing up for annual or lifetime memberships, right? So he was supposed to be raising money too.
Yeah, there's money there too. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so if you're the registrar's assistant, which means you're Giuliano's assistant, I mean, I'm sorry, did I get his name wrong?
No, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Giuliano, was he an active fundraiser? Was he good at his job? Like, did you see him in action?
Yeah, so that's all he did. He took the role of the fundraiser, and he would just be calling people up. My job was to get him appointments and meetings or bring people down to the office because there's it's called MEXCH, the ideal org in Mexico City. Mm-hmm. There's an IAS office there, and there's like a video room that we share with the org where we show people like the IAS videos, the fundraising videos to try to convince them to donate. So my job was to get people to, when you get off course, I got to show you a video. And then I'd bring them down to the office, and then Giuliano would be there and scare them because he's a scary guy.
He looks like a scary guy. He looks like a hitman.
People were afraid of him. When I had to figure out how to introduce myself, because if I said Giuliano's assistant and they knew who Giuliano was, they did not want an appointment with me or anything to do with me. People would run the other way when they saw me. So I would have to trick them into coming into the office like, oh, I want to show you something. I want to show you a video. And then he would just be there. Because people were afraid of him.
Menacing, lingering figure, ready to pounce.
Yeah. I thought of him as like a monster for what I thought was goodness. I thought of him as like, he's a monster for goodness, for money, for these campaigns. He's a monster for it. But because he was like, a scary guy.
I mean, I'll tell you, when I look at him, he has the exact same beingness as other rock star IAS fundraisers. There was a couple guys in the LA office in PAC who were just like, they looked like they would kill you in a second. I mean, it's funny to describe them that way because it's a different type of Sea Org swagger than any other international management executive I ever encountered. Your normal international management executive, which these days they pretty much don't exist, the glare in their eye, and this is just how I always perceived it as a good little Scientology soldier, had to do with Scientology. But these guys have a different look in their eye. it's almost like we're above the law. And that's not the feeling I ever got from an international exec. These IAS guys have this thing of like, you can't touch us. We can do anything we want. We walk on water. We can get away with murder. We would kill you in a heartbeat if it would get us a donation. And we're really good at our job. No one says no to us. Like, oh, that's actually what it comes down to. No one says no to us because we can end you if you are so much as rude to us. Like, that's kind of the power IAS fundraisers have in Scientology orgs. In the East US, the guy who ran that office was named Patty Cunningham. I have no idea whatever happened to Patty. He was a little nicer because he was Irish, if I recall correctly. And he didn't have that quite same, like, I could literally chop you in half right now. But anyway, one of the reasons I was so surprised to see that there was so many staff members in the LATAM office for the IAS is, I swear to God, I'm not sure if there's that many staff members in the LA office. And the LA office must make more, probably makes more money than any other office except maybe Flag or maybe the Ship. I don't know. I've never spoken to anyone from the Ship.
I know
office,
Flag.
but
I think it's Flag.
You think Flag's the #1 producing office? It's okay. You froze for a second, but you're back.
Yeah, I heard you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I was kind of thinking about it, but yeah, it has to be. That's where the man. It sounds awful, but like literally, that's the way we think as IAS members. That's where the big fish are. It sounds terrible, but yeah.
All right, Flag. We're having a little bit of a connection problem, but I can. You're back. I could always hear you, but sometimes your image is freezing. Let me know if you can hear me.
Okay. I hear you well enough to understand you, but yeah, it's a little choppy and your image is frozen.
Okay. All right, we'll keep going. We'll go on through because I can. Yeah, we'll keep going. Okay, why was the IAS office in LATAM so horrible at raising money? All right. This happened a little bit, guys, for you watching when we were testing this. His connection kind of goes in and out. So we'll struggle on through, and I'll probably edit it after upload a little bit. And also, guys, reminder, I will publish segments of this interview to the Growing Up in Scientology Clips channel. Okay, let's see. Leo, it looks like you might have entered the studio twice. Are you in? Do you see on the backstage? It looks like you're in here twice. It may not matter, but
no. What happened was my screen just said something went wrong, and it said try again, and I hit try again. That might be why I'm in here twice.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll just keep going. Why is it that the IAS office in LATAM struggled to even make $1,000 a week?
Very simple. There's not enough people. Not enough people. Not enough Scientologists. And the ones that are there to donate have already just given everything they got. There's no more money in the field. I mean, when you're in there, you can't say that, but yeah, that's what it is.
Is the org that the IAS LATAM office is located in the largest org in Mexico?
Yeah. Yeah, because, well, when I was there, it was the only ideal org in Mexico. Now, recently, the one that they recently opened, I think that one might have like a couple stories. It might be taller, but I don't know if it's bigger.
But for the org that you were at to have been the first and only ideal org at that time, and for it to have been selected to be the first, chances are it is the largest in terms of stats, the largest org in Mexico. Otherwise, it never would have been the first ideal org, right?
I think it kind of evenly competes with a couple other orgs in Mexico City. Mexico City is so big that there are like 3 that I can think of right now, but there's probably 4 or 5 orgs in Mexico City.
I remember there was ITD, IFAD, and ODD. If that ring a bell. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the 3 of them. ITD turned into MEXCH. It turned ideal. And then what was the other 2?
ITD, IFAD, And ODD.
So IFADE just turned into the new ideal org in El Valle. And ODD is in Polanco, which is like the most prestigious, one of the most prestigious areas of Mexico City. So the public that go to that org are like very loyal to that org. But it's not ideal yet. It's still.
Okay, so the org that your office was located in, if it's not the largest org in Mexico, it's at least as big as the others.
Yeah, it probably is bigger in terms of like people who have taken courses there, and their central files probably has a lot more people in it. Yeah.
So how many public Scientologists were on lines at that org?
So when when you're in the org, there's a sign-in sheet. When you walk in, you got to sign in. When you leave, you got to sign out. So I would go down to the sign-in sheet, and I could tell you that sheet maybe had like max 25 names a day. But keep in mind, I myself had to sign in on that sign-in sheet. The 7 people that we just saw in that picture had to sign in that sign-in sheet, and the 15 staff members had to sign into that sign-in sheet. So that leaves like 5 public sometimes.
So, okay, the ideal org had
This is a 4-story building.
Had 15 staff members.
Something like that. Maybe 20. Well, because there's day and night, so maybe like 20 and 20 or 15 and 15. Yeah.
Oh my God. The tiny little Philadelphia org that I was from 20 years ago had double that staff. Like that, we had an average of between 35 and 40, 45 staff members in Philly. And that was over 20 years ago. David Miscavige says Scientology's expanded like 60x since then. Those Mexican orgs used to win the birthday game. One of those orgs might have even been declared St. Hill size at one point. Don't quote me on that. I could have that wrong. But wow. And it's a 4-story building. Do you remember how many square feet? 30,000, 50,000?
I have no idea, man. It's all in kilometers out here. And then also I just never asked.
Oh, square meters. How many square meters? That's fine.
But I'll tell you this, that building used to be the largest bank in Mexico City. The largest bank. Wow. Was it the largest bank, or it was just a large bank? But the building was a large bank. Yeah.
How did you guys get paid in the IAS office?
So we actually got paid a lot better than the CLO LATAM, because we got paid straight from LA, and we would just get paid the full amount that a Sea Org member is supposed to get paid, whether or not we met our quota. So we were kind of like, that's like spoiled for the Sea Org. That's super spoiled. And
that's IAS privilege for you right there. Yeah,
very privileged, because our money that we got paid, like we were basically just like the $300 that we were able to collect, they would give us back the $300 in payment to the whole 7 people,
Wow. Okay. So, but your payment, your weekly pay as a Sea Org member, was it $50?
Oh no, it was $35. I think that had to do with my rank or something. I was fairly new. No,
$35 a week.
$35 a week. I think it's because it's LATAM. 35.
Oh, damn, there's a LATAM tax. They're like, you're in Mexico, so you ain't getting the whole 50.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The economy's different. They're like, that's like in pesos.
Is 35 US a week pretty good for an average worker in Mexico City?
No, but it's half of the minimum. Oh. So if you have food paid for, your roof, housing is paid for, wage.
Wow. Okay. And so you mentioned the CLO staff. That's the Continental Management Office that's staffed by Sea Org members in LATAM. What was their pay situation like?
Their pay was, I think it was around $10.
Damn.
And maybe like once a month, like 1 out of 4 weeks, they would not get paid.
Wow. Okay, you mentioned that maybe there's about 5 public Scientologists going into that org on a daily basis? Because that's what you meant by looking at the sign-in sheet, right? Like how many people came in today?
I'm having a connection issue here.
That's right.
I didn't hear that last question. How many people? What?
So you said that there was about 5 public per day going into the org. Is that what you meant when you said you looked at the sign-in sheet? You were like, how many people came in today?
Yeah, honestly, that's a fair amount of people. Maybe like on a busy, maybe like a Friday or something, that could have been a little bit. It could have been triple that. It could have been 50. It could have been 15. But yeah, that's it.
What about events? What about when they're putting on an event, like either the New Year's event or the annual IAS event, or maybe even a well-attended IAS fundraiser? What's like, just from what you can recall, what's like the most Scientologists you saw them ever be able to gather up for an important international event?
So probably the biggest event that we did in Mexico City was one of the IAS events. What they do is they'll rent out the event hall, some like local event hall in Mexico City, and then they'll invite all the orgs, all 3 orgs, to the IAS event, right? So that's where you get the most amount of people. And there's probably seating for like 200 people, but it was like maybe like 130. Wow. And also all the CLO was there, because they're all supposed to help with the fundraising. It was kind of like 1 Sea Org member per person. So it's kind of really hard to fundraise that way.
Wow. So 130 people, that includes all the Sea Org members at the CLO. It includes all the staff members from all 3 orgs, and all public from all 3 orgs that they can convince to come. That's in one of the biggest cities in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Minus the staff members. I think the staff members had to stay at the org and work.
During the event?
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, well, your IAS office, the org that your IAS office was located in, would your office only allowed to fundraise at that org, or you would fundraise at the other 2 orgs as well?
Yeah, we would take like take a taxi or something to another org and go see who's there. And then I'd be like, oh, this public is here, this public is here, this public is here. Who do you want to talk to? And Juliana would tell me, just come back. Or something like that, because he's like, oh, I have a beef with that one, and I have a problem with that one. And the last time I spoke to her, she didn't like, he just like, people just, he has I guess it's like conflict with so many people.
He looks like a man who has conflict. Okay, so that $1,000 a week. So here's the thing. Scientology makes more money from the IAS than it does from selling Scientology. So the first thing I thought when you told me that the IAS office for, well, all of LATAM, but Mexico City, only makes $1,000 a week, my first thought was, oh my God, that means the orgs are making even less. That means the orgs combined are making even less than $1,000 a week, which that's not enough to pay bills, and I can tell you that I always believed, as an American Scientologist, staff member, and Sea Org member, that Mexico is where all the growth was happening, because in the events, it was always the Mexican orgs that were winning the birthday game, or, the Italian orgs. But, especially after the first golden age of tech, the Mexican orgs was always like year after year after year winning the birthday game. And technically, in order to win the birthday game year after year after year, you have to be expanding by multiple times. You have to be like doubling and tripling your stats, technically speaking, to, win the birthday game year after year. So now I remember one of my friends, Hector Cruzado, became the executive director of one of those orgs. And I ran into him at Flag one time, and I was like, almost like so excited to hear about, oh my God, you guys are doing so great. And he was almost like he had a secret. He was like, oh, yeah, it's okay. I was like, that was one thing. I was like, it sounds like it's not okay.
Yeah. Now that you mention his name as one of the EDs, I know who that is. Yeah.
He's a short guy. He's a lot of energy, very friendly. you know?
Yeah, it's really difficult because I was only in there for a couple years, and most of the time I would just say, "Hey, ED, what's going on, man?" Or you know what I mean? Like you refer to people by their post.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but I know who that is. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to show some of the other photos that you've got here, and then we'll get into like your actual story, because I haven't even asked you about your actual story yet. I totally forget what you said. The woman all the way, Mamichi. What was her post?
She was the advanced man for the events I see. So
Advanced
she was
man.
under the events I see. Yeah.
Right. And here you go. That says membership office in the back there, right?
Yeah, I took that picture for my mama.
And here you are looking a little different. Is this earlier or later than the other photos?
That's earlier. I hadn't gotten my uniform yet, and I was doing one of the staff statuses, I think.
I see.
Yeah, I was friends
this
with
is when
the
you were
photographer, so that's how I got that picture.
Nice.
With the
This is when you were still a brand new Scientologist in Los Angeles. They got you in one of the little magazines for the LA org.
Yeah.
And what's happening in this photo?
So that person made a donation, so he got a commendation.
Very nice. And that's the membership officer on the left, and that's you on the right.
Yeah, and he's a public from Europe. He came to visit.
He came to visit Mexico City from Europe?
Yeah. It's cheaper to do the bridge in Mexico City.
Wow. So you guys would get Scientology tourism capitalizing on the exchange rate.
Yeah, basically people who had no idea what they thought that makes like how you say, oh, they're winning the birthday game. Oh, it's cheaper to stay over there for a month, and it's cheaper to like go up the bridge over there for a month. So people would do that, and then once they got here, they'd be like, "Why is it so empty here?"
Wow. Did they even have auditors?
Yeah, there was you know what? When you say that they probably were making less money in the org, I don't think so. I think they were making more.
Okay.
Because I can tell you that the HGC always had at least 2 people in there, and then the other 3 were in the course rooms. Like it'd be like one person in one course room, and then you go to a different floor at a different course room. There's 2 people in there, and then 2 people in the HGC, which is where they get auditing. Yeah.
Well, just because someone's in the HGC doesn't mean they made money on those people that week. But you are like, do you remember?
That's true.
But okay, so in the United States, at a Class 5 org, an intensive of auditing costs somewhere in the vicinity of $2,500. So if you only sell one intensive, you're already making more money than the entire IAS office. But do you have any idea what an intensive of auditing costs in Mexico City?
Oh yeah, it's cheaper. I think you said it's at like more than 1,000 over there in the US.
$2,500 for an intensive.
Oh yeah, it's definitely cheaper. The figure, I don't know because I wasn't in there in the department, but the figure in my head, maybe has no merit, but I think it was an intensive. It's definitely not 2,000. Like it has to be between 750 and 1,500 for an intensive. For example, I know that the first step, the PURIF is 1,500 for the PURIF.
In the US, the PURIF used to be 2,500, but I'd have to double check. If anyone in the live chat knows, they might have raised the price to 5,000. It's somewhere between 2,500 and 5,000 for the PURIF in the US.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the PURIF is 1,500 in Mexico in dollars.
Okay. All right. So let's get into how you got into Scientology.
Right. So this is where the story starts, and it actually kind of it connects to what's going on right now in the YouTube and the live streaming community of SPTV, because I was actually introduced to Scientology on Hollywood Boulevard at the test center where this whole sort of live streaming protest started. And so that was big for me when I started seeing those videos. That's around the time where I started to kind of like fully get out of the Scientologist mind mentality, because I was seeing like that's where I joined, that's where I walked in, and it was just one day I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard like a tourist would, and I walked in on my own because I thought it was interesting. I was just walking around, walking into shops and stuff. So I just walked in there. They showed me a video. I was like, okay, yeah, I got 15 minutes for the Dianetics movie. I watched the Dianetics movie. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was cool. It's like supposed to be mental health, and that's good stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. But it was like, I was also kind of like hoping that it'd be more spiritual. I remember that I was like watching this Dianetics thing, and I was like, I thought this would be a little bit more spiritual, but it's kind of like medical, sort of, the Dianetics or mental health. But then once they like introduced me to some of the other more spiritual stuff, that's sort of what, in that time in my life, I was 19, I was looking for that. I was looking for like, spiritual answers or just guidance or something. I had like studied a few different religions, just like on the internet, just like what did they believe? What did these people like? What did the different religions believe all over the world? And so that was my intention walking in, is like, oh, I want to know what they believe. I want to know what they, like what type of spiritual guidance they might offer. And so I started doing introductory courses there, and that's how it started.
So the introductory courses, were they actually done at the test center, or were they done down the street at LA Org?
Yeah, they're at the test center. They have a course room back there.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so when they're live streaming, there's a window where sometimes you can see where people are doing their tests.
Mm-hmm.
They have like little desks, sort of dividers. If you keep going down that hallway, there's a door right there. That door is the course room. And sometimes in the live streams, you can see that door.
Yeah. Wow. So someone who's on course there at that center, they would keep coming back. They would not send those people to the intro course room at LA Org?
No, because actually they got upset with me when I went to LA Org to do intro courses over there, because they're like, you're our public. You should be doing courses here.
Wow. I don't even know how to make sense of that. That's wild. That's incredible. So how many courses did you do there, or how long did you do courses there before the next step occurred?
I was doing, it was a very short amount of time. I was doing courses probably for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe. So I was interested in the blue church, the blue building, because I was like, oh, well, that's a bigger building. Let me go over there and, tell them that I'm doing courses over there. And then they signed me up for some courses at LA Org. So I did start doing introductory courses at LA Org like 3 or 4 weeks after doing maybe like 4 or 5 days or 6 days of course studies in the test center. And when I got to LA Org, there was a recruiter there who just like immediately was like, oh, new guy, let me go talk to him and try to recruit him for the Sea Org. Like that was his goal. Green. I was, in Scientology, they say green when someone knows nothing. So I was green, very green. And he needed to get his stats up. That's simple as that. He needed to get his stats up and he needed to recruit people. And I was someone who walked in. So he wanted to recruit me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Remember the name of the recruiter?
No, I don't, man. I'm really bad with names.
That's okay. Do you remember the name of anyone who was working with you at the test center?
Man, I remember all their faces.
That's all right.
But
any of the people that have been popping up at the test center for the protests, do you recognize any of them, or are those all new faces?
Oh yeah, most of them are new faces. The Twilla, she was there when I was there, and R2D2 was there, but she was at the LA Org. She was at LA Org, and the only guy that they didn't give a nickname to, but he was one of the main guys who he would always be handing out pamphlets. In the beginning, he's always hanging out with young lady. He's always hanging out with young lady, not Lurch, not the tall guy, but another guy who's always like with young lady. The young lady's definitely new, but that guy, he has a sort of like a European accent.
Oh, yeah.
He me and him, we were kind of buddies. Like we would, I mean, in the hallways, we'd be like hang, like talk, chat for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you said Twilla was still there when you joined, basically. So, what year was that?
It was
Is that about 2018, 2017? What was that?
the end of 2019.
Mm.
No. The end of 2018, beginning of 29. No. Yeah, the end of 2019, beginning of
How long were you
No.
in the Sea Org?
2 years.
So if you were in the Sea Org for 2 years and you left 4 years ago, then it would have to be closer to 6 years ago. So yeah, but somewhere around 2018-ish.
Yeah. It might have been January of 2018.
I see.
I started in October, and from October to January, I was a public. And then January, right around my birthday, is when I became a Sea Org member.
Got it.
So it's between years. That's why I'm a little confused. It's like it went from October to January.
I get it. So October 2017 is when you walked into the test center.
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting. Yeah. Before you walked
Yeah.
into that test center, had you ever even heard of Dianetics and Scientology before?
No. Nothing. Not at all. I didn't ever watch South Park. I never saw the documentaries. I had no idea.
You didn't even know, oh, it's that thing Tom Cruise is in.
I didn't even know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you find appealing? So you sort of explained you were looking for, something spiritual. What do you remember thinking when you're doing these intro Scientology courses? What did you find appealing about it at that time?
Man, this is where it gets a little bit, it gets really deep because I was just perfect for them to recruit. The way the things that I already had in my head just like fit like a glove with what they had for me. So I, like I said, was very spiritual, very much like wanting to find answers of life and the afterlife and stuff like that. And one thing that was really interesting to me was like people telling stories of past lives and remembering past lives, or like a little kid who said, "Oh, that was my best friend," and he's talking about like a World War II veteran. This, like those stories.
I've seen that video. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I always thought those things were fascinating. And I always kind of like wondered, like, how can I figure out how to remember my past lives? It must be like something spiritual, something that I need to find so that I can remember my past lives, because that would be awesome if I could remember my past lives. And so I went in there, and I also had kind of, man, it's a lot. I was taking notes about different things that I could collect from different ideologies and religions and spiritual beliefs around the world, and sort of like culminating my own belief. Personal. It was very personal to me. I understood that like this is what I personally believe. And what I personally believed at the time when I walked in there was I believed in past lives, and I believed that I wanted to figure out how to remember my past lives. I also, when it came to these notes that I had jotted down and like created for myself, I created a symbol for it, right? Like, a symbol that just came to me. And the symbol is a triangle, just a simple triangle, equilateral triangle. And I remember being like, there is something about this triangle that I need to figure out. I know this sounds crazy, but that's what was going on in my head. And when I walked into the test center, I saw a poster for one of the movies that they have. They have a movie about one of the books. The book is called The Fundamentals of Thought. Is it The Fundamentals of Thought or The Fundamentals of Thought. And that one of the fundamentals of thought in that book and in that movie is the ARC triangle. And in the movie poster, the ARC triangle is this like electric blue triangle. When I was a little kid, I mean like 14, I had to have been 14. Because this is like when I'm telling you that I put a symbol to these beliefs, I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. So when I created this symbol for what I'm going to collect in my personal spiritual beliefs, the symbol was a triangle, and I didn't know what it meant, but I thought that eventually I'll figure out what it means. Because of that, when I was 14, 15, 16, eventually I turned 18, and I tattooed the triangle on my arm. And I said, this is like a reminder. I have to find this triangle and figure out what it means. And I was just prepped and ready, perfectly packaged for them. I saw the triangle on the poster, and I said, what does that triangle mean right there? What does that mean? And the lady brought me to it. Real quick, let me just pause and go back to when I was 14. When I was 14, I was a bad kid. Me and my friends would sneak out. We'd go and do things that we shouldn't do, like graffiti and stuff. And one of the things that I did when I was 14 years old, I did a triangle, and I put 3 words on each corner of the triangle. And the 3 words were communication, perception, and understanding. And that's what I thought the triangle meant. But I was like, it's not like 100% there, but it's almost there. And so when I find the ARC triangle, and I'm in the test center, and I'm like, what does that triangle mean? And she tells me, this is the ARC triangle. It's reality, communication, affinity, and all together it creates understanding. In my head, my mind was blown. I was like, I found it. This is what I've been looking for. In hindsight, I realized that a triangle is a very simple shape, and this could be very much so just a coincidence. But it was like I had this tinder and they had fuel, and it just a flame happened, because right as soon as she told me what this triangle meant, and me with my personal beliefs of wanting to remember past lives, the first thing that I asked her was, do you guys believe in past lives? And she said, yes, we do. And I said, okay. And I told her, I showed her the triangle. I was like, I've been looking for this triangle. I think that in my past life, I knew what it meant, and now I'm trying to find it again. Like I said, perfectly packaged for them. It was a gift to them. And this was, everything lined up. So I said, yeah, I think this is what I've been looking for. And I think it has to do with, I must have known it in my past life. And my goal is to figure out how I'm going to remember my past lives. But that's all I said. I just said, okay, I think I've seen this before. And she said, she showed me the bridge. No, hold on. We were still standing right there in front of the poster. And yeah, I said, I think I've seen this before, and I think I've known about this before, and I've been looking for it, because I had been looking for it. I really had been looking for a triangle. I tatted it on my arm to go look for it. So she just said, welcome back, stuck her hand out and shook my hand. And that is like a lock just hinging into place. I was locked in from that day, from that moment. It was an exhilarating thing to shake her hand, and she says, welcome back. It was insane. It was just, it was a lot.
I can just imagine what was going through her head at the time. It was something like, we got him.
It was
wow.
a lot more than that, because I was 20 coming up on 21. LOA for Sea Org members is you're supposed to come back when you're 21. So it was like it was like prophetic. It was like a prophecy that I came back at 20 years old and 20 years and 10 months old.
Oh my God.
That's when I found it again, and I came in with the story of the triangle. And yeah, honestly, that triangle was very much so like something that I was looking for.
Wow. And that was all that went down right there at the test center on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah.
Wow. You don't remember that girl's name?
She has a really sweet name. She's Venezuelan, and her name is like, like a sweet name. I think like Lindsay is like a sweet name, like a cute, sweet name. Something like Lindsay, something like that, but a Spanish sort of. I don't remember really.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So wow. So did they did I have to imagine, I have to wonder, did that person then start leaking the idea of he thinks he's reincarnated and all this stuff so that other Sea Org members would treat you that way?
Yep. Immediately, everybody started treating me like I was a returning Sea Org member.
Oh my God.
Everybody, Sea Org members would call me sir as a public.
Oh my God.
So I mean, that doesn't happen.
Wow. Okay. So you spent 4 or 5 weeks, if I recall, or 3 or 4 weeks, doing intro courses at the test center. You wound up over in LA org, still in the introductory course room?
Yeah, so I was in the introductory course room because basically, when I went to LA org, yeah, I was just doing ups and downs in life. Those just the introductory courses, but maybe I did like 2 or 3 of them, and then I went to ASHO and I did the Hubbard's apprentice Scientologist course in ASHO.
Hubbard qualified Scientologist course?
Yeah, that one.
The HQS or there is an there was something called an HAS course.
Yeah, it had the word apprentice in it because it was like one of the first big courses. But it like they taught me H8 like how to 8C, and I was like moving a grown man around in a room and stuff.
It sounds like HQS.
It might have been.
Okay.
Could they have changed the name? I don't think. Probably not. Right?
Anything's possible. There was an old HAS course back that L. Ron Hubbard used to run, and they might have brought back a version of that kind of rings a bell. But that should be a course that you could still do at LA org. Was there some reason they sent you to ASHO? It doesn't matter.
I think ASHO's course rooms had more people to partner up with.
There you go. Yes. And ASHO, you can't, all the courses that you do in LA org, you can also do at ASHO. So that makes sense. They're like, we don't have anyone to do these damn drills with him.
Exactly. I think actually they had somebody there who needed someone to do drills with. And they were like, Leo, if we sign you up over here, then you can partner up with that person who needs a partner. That's what happened.
Right. Wow.
So, and that's how I also got like a little bit of grade 2 auditing because she was practicing grade 2 auditing.
There you go. That must have been kind of a nice experience for you, I'm guessing, jumping into a big org with big course rooms and more students and more staff. What was that like for you?
Yeah, definitely. It felt like I was always like against school and the school system. So it felt like this is how school should be, like everyone at their own pace, no grades, no qualifying numbers and letters. It was exciting to me because it was like education. There's spiritual education here. People are learning spiritual things. And they're partnering up and they're having drills and they're talking to each other back and forth, or they're doing these weird practices down the hall where somebody has their hand on their shoulder and walking people down the hall. And some people are acting here. Some people are acting like they don't want to go somewhere, or they, you know what I mean? Like they're like, and I'm like, oh, there's like acting going on. Okay, this is interesting. It was exciting.
The energy in a practical course room is pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's like loud.
I can see, especially if it's a new person getting introduced to this, like it's kind of addicting. It's a packed, busy, loud, practical course room is a pretty fun place to be, Scientologically speaking, at least.
Yeah, there's a lot of laughing, and because you get to partner up with people, so you're talking to someone, you can kind of joke around a little bit in between what you're doing and your drills and whatever. Or when it comes to like bull baiting is supposed to be like as crazy or as exciting as you could make it.
Yeah. Did you find that experience to be even more appealing than everything that you had already experienced? Like, was it just like, did it just reinforce that you had made the right decision?
Yeah. Every step of the way, it kept like affirming things. in a weird way. Like I was like, oh, I wondered about this, and then they would have a course for it or something, or they just have an answer for it like on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like meeting those Sea Org members at ASH show? Was it any different than the ones you dealt with at the test center or LA Org?
No, I think they were pretty much the same, like trying to be upbeat, trying to like put on a good friendly face for the public, because there's public there. And yeah, they were just sort of like friendly people, happy people.
Do you remember the names of any of your supervisors at that time?
No, I don't.
That's fine. Just wondering.
Because the supervisors, you just call them soup. Yeah.
Okay, so what was the next step for you? Did you finish that course, or did they recruit you before you finished it?
Okay, so I had to finish it because I was already in the recruitment cycle. So first they tried to recruit me at LA Org. That didn't work. There was a big stop there because I grew up in the US as an illegal immigrant. So my family moved to the US when I was 4 years old. We overstayed our visa and we just migrated. We were immigrants in the US. And I never had papers to work. So when they try to, they wanted me to be a Sea Org member in the LA Org, but they still have to like hire you. And they couldn't. So they had a hard stop. They couldn't recruit me at the LA Org. As soon as LA Org said, oh man, we can't, that's when the IAS HCO came in and they were like, yes, we can. Because the IAS can. No, I'm just kidding. Because the IAS is international. So they were like, oh, that doesn't stop us from recruiting you. So we'll recruit you. And yeah, they told me that they could send me to Mexico and I could be a Sea Org member in Mexico. It took a lot of convincing. It wasn't, I said no for like a month and a half. But eventually they convinced me with the campaigns. I don't know. I guess my button was that I wanted to help. I wanted to help as many people as possible, but I didn't want to be in the Sea Org. Like I didn't want to give away my life to help people or to do what I wanted to do but yeah, it just took a lot of convincing. And eventually the way that they convinced me to join the Sea Org was they basically made it so that like, they basically said, okay, you can, because I told them like my ideas is, my passion in life is filmmaking, and I've always wanted to be a filmmaker and do documentaries and things like that. So I would tell them I was, I wanted to make films and like helpful style documentaries that are humanitarian in a way. That's kind of like what I want to do. That's my passion, and that's what I want to do. And what they told me was that the IAS funds, oh, that's another campaign that they fund, is Scientology Media Productions. So the IAS funds Scientology Media Productions, and they were telling me Scientology Media Productions has a documentary showcase. So if you work for the IAS funding, like getting donations, you can actually multiply your effect with these documentary films. You can multiply your effect by funding this showcase show where we'll get like 2 new documentaries a week or 3 or 4 documentaries a month showcased on this channel for hundreds of thousands and millions of people to see. And that's how you can like multiply your impact in the world, or, stuff like that.
Wow. They said that the IAS funds Scientology Media Productions?
Don't tell me that's not true. That's not true. That's what they said.
No, that's not true.
That's one of the 13 campaigns. That's why 13 sounds like a lot. Yeah.
Oh my God. No. I mean, Scientology Media Productions is staffed by Sea Org members. What would the IAS be funding?
Right. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. The campaign that we were funding was the Curious campaign. So like the promoting of SMP, promoting of Scientology Network, and the Scientology Network. Yeah, basically apparently like who paid for like the channel that they get onto is supposed to be the IAS.
Wow.
or like the dish contract that they have. I guess that's supposed to be the IAS. And
Wow.
all of the little cards with the little, like they had a whole campaign to like disseminate Scientology Network TV, and so they had like little business cards with the Scientology Network and the QR code, so you can scan it and download the app. So I guess like for the app development and for all these printing of these little pamphlets and cards, apparently that was one of the, like, it's supposed to be, it's called like the World Dissemination Campaign of Scientology Media Productions or something like that.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so so they want to send you back to Mexico because that's where you're legally from. But you left Mexico when you were 4. Did you even have any memories of Mexico?
No, and especially not Mexico City. Mexico City should be its own country. It's like a whole different planet. It's a whole different world. Because where I'm from Jalisco, and this is like I'm in like a rural area in Jalisco, and this is where my family's from, and there's like fields out here of agave and crops, and I do have memories of hanging out with my cousins when I was a little kid in Mexico and stuff. But when I got to Mexico City, it was it's really hectic. It's overcrowded. It's just completely overcrowded. Too many people, too many cars, a lot of pollution, a lot of honking, a lot of sirens. It's just like crazy. Yeah.
Hmm. And were you even fluent in Spanish?
No, I was not. I spoke Spanish. I can understand Spanish almost 100%. Because when I grew up with my mom and dad, I would go to school, speak English, and then I'd go home and speak Spanish with my parents. But when you're speaking with your parents, you don't learn technical terms, you don't learn slang even, or just like even just fluent, like sort of like the way people talk. You don't really talk like that with your parents. There's a specific way you talk with your parents. It's kind of very simple. So my Spanish was that level of like simple. I understand everything my parents tell me and say to me, but for me to articulate how I want to communicate to them in Spanish, I would probably not articulate too much. I'd just keep it simple with my parents, So I did struggle a lot with Spanish.
Okay, so you mentioned that you had to finish the HAS or HQS course, or whichever one you were on, because it had something to do with the recruit cycle. That you had said no, they wanted to recruit you at LA Org. They couldn't because of your immigration status. The IAS is like, hello. They convinced you to go back to Mexico, partially because they leveraged your love of documentary films, humanitarian documentary films. Hey, join the IAS. We fund Scientology media productions. What did that have to do with having to finish your course?
Because just for the HCO thought I was a spy or I was like a CIA agent or something, because they were like, this motherfucker, he knows too much. Or he's too excited to join or something.
This
I
is
don't
too
know.
good to be true.
Too good to be true, for sure. And so they were like, HCO wants you to have like a record of courses before they can accept you into the routing into the Sea Org. So they were like, just do like this one. This is a big one, and then a couple small ones, and that'll be enough.
That's even more important considering you were being recruited for what is essentially an international level org.
Yeah.
If you were just joining the Sea Org at LA Org, they probably wouldn't have cared as much as they would have cared less than the fact that you were joining the IAS.
Yeah, I totally get that because HCO, IAS HCO is like a whole. They're their own sort of HCO. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the people watching, HCO is basically ethics, and HCO in Scientology is basically HR, recruiting, personnel, and ethics and justice. Okay, so I get it. You had to finish the course. That makes sense. So you finished that course. What happens next?
Okay, so I finished the course, and I there was a Friday graduation for the course, and they were like, okay, so we're routing you into the Sea Org. I signed my contract, and when I signed the contract, I saw it as like symbolic, the billion years. To me, it was like I'm signing this not as my physical body. I'm signing this as a spiritual being, and it was just this symbolicism of it. So I understand it's like, oh, you signed the billion-year contract, but yeah, it was. I did, and I had signed the contract. I finished the course. I was gonna do a graduation speech at the graduation at AOLA, because that's where they have the graduations at on Blue Base. I don't know now. They probably have to do it underground or something, um, but but they have like a like a little stage and a little area for events, and that's where people do the graduations on Friday. I finished my course. I'm over there. They were helping me write a speech. So the speech was supposed to be, I finished my course. This is what I learned. This is my gains, and the course was great. And then also I have another announcement, and the other announcement was I'm joining the Sea Org. So I have that. I have that on video. My mom was there because I told my mom, I was like, "Oh, I'm graduating from my, the courses I'm taking over here," and and I and I invited her. I was like, "Yeah, you should come and see me graduate because I'm going to do a speech," and she didn't know that there's rules in there, so she just pulled her phone out and just started recording me. And I have a video of my whole speech. And in that speech, I explained the triangle. I explained how I found Scientology. I explained how I was like collecting information and searching for spiritual information or answers. And I told the whole story and announced to everybody that I'm joining the Sea Org, and everybody's like, "Whoa!" and clapping, and yeah.
There's a rule about no recording.
I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to do that, right? I think it's like
Maybe,
an unspoken. I think it's unspoken because it's like
I'm sure there's a lot of new rules.
Yeah, right. It should be a new rule because these are like cell phones, and like maybe around 2005 they had to figure out what are they going to do about camera phones. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do that. Nobody else was doing it. But my mom, she just pulled it out and started recording. Nobody told her to stop recording. And she had somebody sitting next to her translating my speech to her in her ear. So that person could have told her not to record, but she didn't. She let her record. So I guess maybe it's not really a rule, but it's sort of like an unspoken thing. You're not supposed to pull your phone out and record video in the org at all.
Wow. So what did your mom think about all this?
Okay, so I do. That's one of the good things that Scientology did for me, was sort of mend my relationship with my mom, because we were sort of we had like a rocky relationship growing up. And Scientology, when I started doing courses, it helped me sort of like understand that my mom is also like a spiritual being or something, or like try to just understand that she's sort of a person just like me or something like that. I don't know. And it helped with my temper, and it helped with my I used to smoke weed a lot, so that's something that would always conflict with, of course, my mom. And doing Scientology, she saw me getting better. She saw me communicating with her better. I tried to like use the ARC triangle to sort of mend the relationship and stuff. So it was like there's like tools that are basic things that you can do to just have a better relationship with your mom. And so my mom liked it because of that, because she saw me getting better, or she saw me like she saw me, sorry about that, advance, or just growing into like a better version of myself, kind of.
Okay, so she was supportive, but did she herself ever try to do any intro courses or show any interest in that?
No, she thought it was blasphemy. She's a very Catholic woman.
She thought it was blasphemy,
but
she was kind of okay with you doing it.
Yeah, I mean, because I went from no religion, and like, because we grew up Catholic, we grew up going to church, and I grew up telling her I don't want to go to church anymore. I don't believe in this, and that broke her heart. And for me to go from that to like, okay, it's not Catholicism, Christianity, but it's helping him. He's getting off weed. We're having a better relationship as mother and son. So I guess, yeah, she just saw like something like results, but she didn't like the cross, and yeah, she didn't like all of it, and she never wanted to join herself because of that.
That's good. That's good. So then, did you immediately join the Sea Org after that? Start the EPF?
I had to do a couple things. What do they call it? Like your closing cycles, because
Your
I was
project prepare?
renting. Yeah. So I was doing that. I was renting a house in Baltimore at this time. And well, the reason why I was in LA on Hollywood Boulevard was because I just got into a car accident. I needed money to get a car. So my mom's husband, he's a contractor. He pays well. He said, just come over here, stay with me and your mom, and work for me. I'll pay you well. And in like 3 months, that'll be enough for like a cheap car. You could drive it back to your house in Baltimore. So those 3 months, I was away from my house, but I kept paying rent. I had a roommate. I would give her my part of the rent. And so I had things that I had to take care of. Basically, it was really simple. All I had to do was I gave my roommate some money and told her that I'm not coming back to find another roommate. And I left all my stuff in my house in Baltimore. I had I had a lot of clothes, a lot of shoes, like TV and just things that I had in my house. I just told her, you can have all my stuff and sell it to help you. Also, if you need more time to find a roommate, just sell all my stuff. You can have it. I just let go of everything, all my worldly possessions, and just join the Sea Org. Everyone who joins the Sea Org has to do that, basically.
Okay, so that was pretty much after you finished that course, your project prepare was wrapped up pretty quickly, and you joined the Sea Org pretty shortly after that.
Yeah, there was like talks about like, should I go to Baltimore and pack another bag of clothes? Because when I was in LA, I only had one bag of clothes that I brought for 3 months for the winter time in 3 months. And so there was like talks like, they were like going to get me a plane ticket to fly to Baltimore, get my stuff, and then fly back. But they didn't really trust me. They were like, you might just stay in Baltimore. So, so they were like, is there any way you could just let go of that stuff? And I was like, I guess I could just let go of it. Yeah.
At the time, did it seem like a red flag that they were essentially worried that you would escape? That if they gave you an opportunity to change your mind, you would?
Okay, there was a few red flags, and I am very conscious of the fact that I completely ignored them, because I knew that if I was conscious of the red flags and I was wary of the red flags, and when they put me on the meter, that was going to pop up. And I just didn't want anything to pop up on the meter. So I was like, all right, I'll just trust you guys, and I'm going to dive in head first, and I'm going to find out if I'm making a mistake eventually. But there was red flags. Another one of the red flags was during one of the A through J lists to join that list is basically to make sure you're not a spy, right? Or part of it.
It's to make sure you're not a source of trouble of some kind.
Right. So one of the questions is, do you have an open mind? And I said, yeah, I have an open mind. I'm, any information, I'm ready to take it in and analyze it myself. And I'm open to learning new things. And they were like, okay, session is over. And they had to like teach me that it's not okay to have an open mind when you're joining a cult. So they try to teach me the definition, this L. Ron Hubbard definition of an open mind, and how an open mind is a distracted mind. It's like it's a mind with no purpose and no tracks under its train. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. I don't have an open mind. Okay, I don't have it. And then we went back on the list, asked the question again. I said, nope, didn't register anything. So we kept going. And I did register that as a red flag, but I immediately put it aside and said, okay, I got that, but let me just ignore it because I'm just trying to get through. There was a point. It's really interesting because I don't know. There was a point where I did question. I was like, this could be real or this could be fake. But it was like, in my head, I was like 99% chance it's probably true and real because there's so many people here. There's so many buildings. It was October. No, December, the New Year's event, I went live to that New Year's event and saw David Miscavige on stage live. And I mean, I make fun of the guy now, but at the time he's captivating to listen to him speak and to think that this is real. And so like the things he's saying are true. It's extremely exhilarating. We're doing all this and we're doing all that, and we're growing here, we're expanding there. All the graphics where they show like the whole planet with little lights lighting up, and this is how many orbs we have, and that stuff. Like I was like, wow, this has to be real. I mean, even just at the event, I'm like, there's like 500 people here. That's not a lot. This is LA, but there's probably 1,000 because it was like a balcony above me, and there was like probably 500 people in front of me, and another 500 above me. I don't know. That was my first event.
I'm glad you mentioned the question about having an open mind on the A to J check. It is one of the craziest things. I believe the specific question is, are you approaching Scientology with an open mind?
Yeah.
And everyone's answer is, oh yeah, of course. I'm like, whatever you've got, I'm open to, I'm here to learn. I'm a,
Right.
I'm a blank slate. I'm ready to absorb knowledge. And they're like, that's the wrong answer, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And they literally have to give you L. Ron Hubbard's definition of what it means to be, quote unquote, have an open mind. It's a derogatory phrase. And I've always thought, why don't they reword the goddamn question? And it's basically a trick question. It's so stupid,
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It is kind of a slur. Like, are you open-minded?
It is. It's a slur. Just like being reasonable. Are you being reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, I'm very reasonable. Like, wrong answer, son of a bitch.
Yep.
Reasonable is a bad word in Scientology. And also the events are very impressive. And there is this factor of, when I was a young little staff member, I was older by the time I joined the Sea Org, but just seeing all of the people who'd been in Scientology for 30, 40 years who were OTs, and you're like, well, it has to be true, because if they did the OT levels and it was bullshit, they wouldn't still be here.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Okay. Then, so no, go ahead.
Another thing about the event is like, I dressed up better than I did at my senior prom to go to that event. Like I felt like that was like, this is like a gala, this is awesome. This is like the Met Gala for me. Like everyone's dressed all fancy. There's these beautiful gowns and everybody's got this suit and tie on. So all of that contributes to like credibility.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how Sea Org members who are making $50 a week will somehow save that money up and buy really nice clothes for events?
Yeah. It'll take like a year, but yeah, that's what you buy when you're a Sea Org member. That's what you buy: suits, ties, shirts for the 3 days a year that you get to wear it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those people have family members that they, get money from and stuff like that. But still, even the ones who don't will manage to have nice clothes when they need them.
Yeah. And then also I noticed that like they share it. So like, they're living in bunks and stuff, and they have these closets, and they're like, oh man, do you have a tie I can borrow that goes with this shirt or something? And like, well, I don't know. That's in Mexico City. It's a very communal. You're sleeping in bunks with these people. So a lot of times if someone didn't have a tie, someone would have a tie for them to borrow. Or yeah, that's an important thing, is like dressing up nice on those civies days.
Yeah. Okay. So you end up joining the Sea Org on the EPF in Los Angeles, right?
No, because
they sent you to Mexico first to do the EPF there.
Yeah, so I
I
had to do the EPF in Mexico, because at that point you're working for them. At that point you're employed by them. And yeah, so I landed in Mexico, and it took them the first night. I wasn't approved. It's so like they don't communicate with each other. Like, how is it that from LA they approved me to send me to Mexico, but then when I get to Mexico, they haven't approved me to receive me in Mexico? So I had to wait a day and sleep in a hotel. They paid for it, but I had to sleep in a hotel the first night because I wasn't approved to go into the berthing, because the berthing is like, that's where we sleep. we don't know you. So they made me sleep in a hotel the first night. The second day, it took all day, but at night they were finally like, okay, we got your proof, so you can stay at the birthing with us. And I was like, okay, great. But that was not great. I walked into the birthing for the first time that night, and just like, you walk into that room crowded with people in bunk beds, and you're like, oh shit, what did I just get myself into? That was a moment where I started to almost freak out, and I had to calm myself down. I was like, okay, I'm about to freak out if I don't calm myself down, like make sure to like breathe and actively just calm myself down, because I'm in Mexico City. In Mexico City, the police just ride around with their sirens on and the lights on, whether something's happening or not. So there's constantly just sirens and lights and red and blues everywhere, and just so many people. And I'm just hearing all this noise outside, and Sea Org members are all like looking at me weird because they don't know me, and they're like, oh, new guy. And they're like, yeah, that moment was a big, like, whoa, what's going on here? But I figured it was,
Go ahead.
I figured it was just Mexico. I was like, oh, it's because it's Mexico. So like eventually, because they had told me when I joined, they were like, eventually after 2 years, you'll get a visa, and then you come back to LA, and you'll be here in our IAS offices in LA with us. And they were like, they said that they were starting a branch in the IAS that's like the SMP of the IAS. So they have their own shoot teams and their own editors and their own specifically for the IAS. I don't think that's true, but they said that they were trying to have that like new office. And that was my goal. I was like, okay, at some point, once they do the editing stuff or the video stuff or even the shoot, I could be on a shoot team specifically with like an IAS shoot team shirt or something. Like, I was like, that's what I wanted to do. And I don't think it's even really true. Because there's no reason for them to have their own SMP.
Right. I was going to ask you if there was a part of what they were convincing you to do that you were like, well, hold on, I'm technically illegal in the US, but I'm here and I can continue to be here. But if I leave, I can't come back. Was that, so they basically told you, no, you can come back in 2 years.
I didn't care about coming back.
Oh,
I was just like an adventurous soul at the time. I was like, wherever the wind takes me. If we got to go to Europe, I'll go to Europe.
Okay. How many people were you sharing the room with when you arrived to the Sea Org in Mexico City?
Okay, this is funny. Actually, the EP, because it was the EPF room for the EPFers, and that's actually the biggest room with the least amount of bunk beds, so it has the most space. So when you join in and you're going into the EPF, yes, you're seeing this bunk bed room, but at least it's like the nicest one in the whole birthing because there's just more space. It even had like a window that's like a circle. So it was kind of like a nice large room with three bed bunk beds. So there's enough space to sort of walk around, stretch, whatever. Once you get out of the EPF and get posted, then you go into the birthing. Then you go into the birthing room on like the second floor, because the birthing is an apartment building with 4 floors, and each floor has like 5 or 6 dorms. And so once
is the whole building owned by Scientology?
Kind of. They rent it. And part of the renting contract deal is that the basement is off limits to us, the renters. So it's sort of like I guess they got like a little bit of a price knockdown because they're renting just the rooms, and the basement, which is supposed to be parking for the apartment people who would live in those apartments. It's supposed to be parking down there, and we don't have cars. None of us have cars, so we don't need parking down there. So we made it like there's like a deal with the person who owns the building that they own the basement, but we own the rest of the building, or we rent the rest of the building. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so once you got actually posted, what were those accommodations like?
It's just that the rooms are smaller and there's more bunk beds, and because there's more people posted than there are EPFers.
Right. So how many bunk beds in a room?
So I was in a room. There's 4 bunk beds in my room.
2 high or 3
Yeah.
high?
3 high.
12 people in a room.
Yep, there were 12 people there. Yep. That room had its
Did
own bathroom, so that was good, but it's 12 people per bathroom.
12 people who all have to get ready at the same time because they have the same schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone had 5 minutes in the bathroom to shower and brush their teeth.
Whoa. Okay, and so that berthing, that's for all the CLO LATAM?
Yes. All the CLO
And
stays there.
CMO LATAM.
CMO is top floor. They have the penthouses.
ASI. I'm sorry, IAS. Are there any other Sea Org units in Mexico City other than CLO, CMO, IAS?
No, but there will be soon. Advanced org.
Because of the AO?
Yeah.
That'll never open.
You want to see something?
If there's what do you have? Promo? You have promo for it? AOSH LATAM. What magazine is that though?
Impact.
Is that the newest Impact?
See, this is what I'm saying. It's a campaign for the IAS. You see the Curious campaign.
Yeah.
The campaign continues.
Is that a recent one? Is that like the most recent? Do you know?
It's not the most recent, but it is. I got it. It was the most recent when I left. So it's about 5 years old.
Okay. Here, show me. Put it a little closer to the camera. Let's see that bad boy. No, the back for the AOSH. Yeah, because they do actually own the property, but I don't think they will ever finish the renovations on it. I mean, I think it'll take them 20 years, personally.
This building used to be the largest commercial mall in all of Latin America. Not just Mexico, in all of Latin America. This building, if and when it opens, will be the largest Scientology building in the whole world.
Really?
Single building, not base, because then there's bases, right? Like Flag Base is large because there's multiple buildings, but this building is 3 times bigger than the Flag building.
Wow. So the problem, let me think about this. The problem is like, okay, let's think about this. AOSH Africa. They pretty much still deliver services in English. I'm sure they deliver some services in Afrikaans, but pretty much everyone in South Africa speaks English anyway. So they can recruit for that base by pulling, cannibalizing from other Sea Org bases like the UK and ANZO and even Flag and LA. The problem with staffing AOSH LATAM is that, as you've already said, the freaking orgs themselves only have about 15 staff members. So how are they going to dig up 200 staff members to man an org where they're going to predominantly deliver in Spanish? Now, I guess it's possible, especially if the exchange rate is super favorable, which it is, that you'd have Americans going down to Mexico City to get their auditing in English. So they could bring in a lot of English staff from Flag and from LA, possibly.
Well, the recruitment cycle for the AOSH LATAM has already started, and I have already met a lot of those people who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to be an auditor there, or I'm going to be an HCO there. And what they're doing, they're sending a lot of the Spanish speaking and Hispanic heritage Sea Org members to Mexico to get their Mexican citizenship, so that when it's time, they can get their like, there's already like a group, a team of people who are supposed to be, because this building is supposed to serve as an AO, a class 6. No, is it class 8?
Well, it's a class 9 org. So
regular.
all advanced orgs, all AOSHs are class 9 orgs. So they're, they deliver the St. Hill Special Briefing course. They're supposed to be able to deliver the class 8 course, and they deliver the OT levels up to OT 5.
Right. But they're going to make it also, like, part of it is going to be the ideal org where there's introductory courses for fresh Scientologists, new people. Part of the building is actually the new CLO. Part of the building is actually the new berthing. And the other part is the AO. Yeah. So it's just huge.
That makes sense. There's another problem with opening up an AO in Mexico that has cheap rates, is it undercuts and cannibalizes the business of the US orgs and even Flag and Los Angeles. So could they, just through, musical chairing some staff members and Sea Org members, could they find enough Sea Org members to yank the ribbon on this building? Absolutely. Could they convince Scientologists from all over the world to come to Mexico City to get audited because it's super cheap? Absolutely. But it still results in contraction for Scientology, because all they're doing is robbing business from other orgs where prices are higher. I think this is one reason why David Miscavige is going to want to delay the opening of this building as long as possible. If you look at who actually flies to Africa, who's taking services at the AOSH Africa, it's people from other countries who would otherwise be doing Scientology in their local orgs for higher prices, but they fly to Africa because it's actually so much cheaper. So it looks like expansion, but it actually results in contraction for Scientology.
I never looked at it like that, but that's totally true. And that's actually the main selling point for the Africa AO is cheaper prices.
That's right. Because if you have this giant new beautiful facility, and you just said they're going to actually open up what sounds like almost even a Div 6 or academy level course room.
That's what I was looking for.
Go to ITD and EFA when they could go to the new beautiful AO instead. Like they're just, the orgs are already struggling. Opening it up an AO just robs them of the public they already have.
Yeah, that is totally true. And that's why there's no public, there's no donations, there's nothing.
Yeah. So, okay, so this birthing building, it's basically all the CLO. How many Sea Org members total? If you had to guess, just a rough estimate, how many Sea Org members total exist in Mexico City?
Less than 70.
Wow.
Because when I was there, I think it was around 70. And
wow.
I don't know who's joined, but I do know, I see on Facebook a lot of people have left since I left.
Yeah. So the CLO LATAM, they managed all the orgs even in South America, right?
Yes, all of Latin America down to Brazil. Yep. Argentina.
Amazing.
Chile.
I can't even imagine how tiny those orgs must be. Like the Bogota org has got to be so small. Did you ever go out and visit any orgs other than the ones in Mexico City?
Yeah, I went to the Oregon Guadalajara. And then we had an IAS event in Nuevo León, which is another state in Guadalajara is the second largest city in Mexico, and it's in Jalisco, it's my home state of Jalisco. So actually, when I went to Guadalajara org to do the IAS event, because my family lives an hour away, it was one of the only in the 2 years that I was living in Mexico, and my dad and my brother and sister, a few years before I joined the Sea Org and came to Mexico, they had come to Mexico, and they were living in Jalisco. So when I went to the IAS to do an IAS event in Guadalajara, it was one of my only opportunities to see my family, even though I hadn't seen them in 3 years, and I was in Mexico and they were in Mexico. They couldn't come see me. I couldn't go see them. But when we were having an event in Guadalajara, I called my sister, and I told her that, hey, I'm going to be in Guadalajara. You guys should just show up to this event. It's going to be an event. You can sit down and watch the event if you want. And they came and they sat down for a little bit. They saw the event a little bit, but they just weren't interested. Honestly, it's not that interesting. So they just left. And when the event finished, I asked my senior with the CSW if I could go have lunch or go have dinner with my family instead of having dinner with them, because my family was right there. They were like outside the org, just sort of hanging out. And I remember like my senior really wanted to say no. He really wanted to say no because you're not supposed to do that. But Mamichis came in and she was like, that's his family. Let him go eat with his family. Just go, Leo. Just go. And I just went and I ate with my family. That's why she's Mamichis.
Okay, so what was the Guadalajara org like, real quick? Was it tiny? Was it a happening place?
It's tiny. It's pretty. It has this really big, like open roof, a lot of sunlight. into this like main sort of like a Greek sort of like, what do they call those little, like in the Greek architecture, they'll have like a little
Like an
sunlit.
atrium or
Yeah, like the center is sort of lit up with
a
sunlight, and there's
quad?
really, I think it's
I don't
like,
know.
I think it's supposed to be a garden. It's supposed to be like a inside garden, like a walled off garden, and then the rest of the building is just on the surrounding this like lit up center section, and this little,
That's what AOSH EU is like. The entire building is sort of in the center of the building
that's
is a
right.
huge open space with a glass roof.
Yeah, that's right. So it's sort of
Yeah.
like that, but it's much smaller, not ideal. It's very Mexican, very traditionally, like there's tile, like blue, very beautiful, like blue tile. It's really beautiful because of that, because of how it's like traditionally kept, but it's a small local org. It's really tiny.
Do you remember like approximately how many staff?
It was probably like 7 staff.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember
And
approximately
then
how many people you guys were able to get to the event?
maybe like 25, 30 people.
Wow.
And the staff would bring their kids, and their kids would work too. So add like 2 or 3 to that, 7, and that's like 10.
Wow.
Because the kids would go out and hand out the pamphlets. The adults just didn't want to do it. It's their job, but they would go to work with their kids, and they'd tell them, go on the street and hand these out.
Wow. Okay, so where were we at in the story? Oh yeah, I was asking you about all the Sea Org members and birthing, EPF. Okay, so you start the EPF and you're doing the EPF courses, and how does that go? First of all, how many people were on the EPF with you?
It was a good little group. It's like 5 of us. Some of them were there for like months already. Some of them were just really slow to get out.
Okay. And so then how did that whole experience go for you on the EPF?
It was crazy because in Mexico City, there's no OSHA regulations on how to build things. And for example, the EPFers are supposed to be like estates. They're supposed to keep everything clean and keep everything in order. If a water pipe leaks, the EPFers are supposed to go fix the water pipe. And so there's a lot of things like that, like just like maintaining the building that was like falling apart. I remember thinking like doing stuff that was like so dangerous, like climbing up onto the roof. I was climbing up onto the roof because I had to go do something on the roof that had to do with the water, because they needed water. Something was going on. I needed to open a valve so the water could come through. So I had to climb up onto the roof, and it was like this rickety ladder that was tied onto. Okay, we're on the 5th floor of this building. This is the CLO. We're on the 5th floor of this building. There's a little balcony outside of the 5th floor of this building, and on that balcony, there's a little ladder put up against the building, up onto the roof, and that ladder is tied to piping, to like, I don't know, copper piping, I don't know what. It's tied to some pipes with electrical wire. And you're supposed to climb up that rickety ladder. You're 5 feet. You look over and you're 5 feet above the ground. All you have under you is this little balcony. If you fall, hopefully you can grab onto the balcony. But it's like rickety ladder that's barely hanging on, and you have to climb up there, fix the water, open some valve. And that's like a regular thing. Like every day you have to go close this valve and open that one. And then the next day you got to open that one and close that one. So like, it's just like dangerous things. But it had to do with maintaining the building, keeping everything clean. I learned how to mop really fast.
There's always a silver lining.
I learned how to dust. I love dusting the way they teach. It's very effective.
So how long did the EPF take you to finish?
It took me a long time. It took me like 3 months because I didn't speak any Spanish. All the materials were in Spanish. It was L. Ron Hubbard's poetic self in Spanish. Impossible, just impossible. So I would study in English. And once I got the material, I was okay. I got the materials in English. It's in source language. Then I would have to study it in Spanish and clear every misunderstood word in Spanish with a Spanish dictionary and get into Spanish word chains with multiple Spanish dictionaries so that I could do the drill part with a partner in Spanish, because everybody there was doing it in Spanish. So I had to study it in English so that I could understand it. But then I had to restudy it in Spanish so that I could drill it with somebody, or just the certain parts that I had to drill with someone. I'd read it in Spanish. I'd have to study it again in Spanish. And it just took forever. There was maybe 2 more people in that building that spoke English and studied in English. They were like high executives that were sent from like LA, and now they're posted in Mexico. They still study in English. Giuliano, my senior, was one of them. There's a lady from OSA who spoke English. So sometimes I would get paired up with them. But it was always very intimidating. They never got the story that I was a returning Sea Org member in Mexico, so they treated me different. I swear, I'm serious. They nobody ever told anybody there. I was like, shouldn't you guys tell them? I'm not gonna tell them. I thought like once I get posted, I'll let them know, and then they'll regret it. Everything. Once I get my tie.
Oh, so like no one there spoke English practically. I'm telling you, if they ever open up this AO in Mexico City, they're going to have to take every Spanish speaking Sea Org member from everywhere to send them down there. And then they're not going to be able to deliver to anyone in Spanish in the United States. It's going to be a real problem.
Oh yeah, because right now they're really depending on all those Spanish speaking people to recruit green people, to recruit brand new people.
Yeah.
It's obvious. You can see that they're focusing on Latinos.
And I'll tell you one thing that I think will prevent David Miscavige from allowing people to try and man up the new AO in Mexico with English-speaking people is because he knows damn well all the Americans will start getting their auditing in Mexico City, and it will seriously cut across the business of U.S. orgs, which is already almost non-existent. This is why I'm telling you, this AO is never going to get opened.
Yeah.
And I understand if you say there's already, well, I understand if you say there's already people in training to man up the org, but 20 years ago, what else there was already people in training for? The release of OT 9 and 10.
Oh yeah. No, those people who are training and all that, it's just busy work because they don't have anything else to do, to go to Mexico, get this document, because they don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
Eventually they might use it. I don't know. Those are the people that I made friends with because they were from the US and that we would speak in English. So those are the people that I would be friends with, and in passing was the people, the team that was there fixing their papers for the eventual opening of the AO. And yeah, it's been like even the public is getting tired of it not being open yet because they've been promised this AO for a long time.
But the renovations haven't even started, right?
They start and then they stop and then they start again and then they stop. That's what's been going on. So every like the IAS event that we did where we put all these Mexico City orgs together at this big event hall, like I told you, it was probably the biggest event that I had seen. The big announcement there, the big announcement there was that construction is back open again. We're back constructing again. We had to stop. The SPs had stopped us, but we're back in there with our machinery and we're back in there getting this place back up and running. That was like the big announcement there.
And that was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And then right before COVID, there was supposed to be like an estates team prepared to go do the renovations. But then COVID hit, and then that estates team never saw fruition.
What's interesting about a construction project, which really it's not a construction project, it's a renovation project, right? The building's already there.
Yeah.
Is that David Miscavige can't blame the problem with this project on lack of funds like he would a normal ideal org, because this is a Sea org. It's got to be paid for by Sea Org reserves or the IAS, one or the other. And there's already billions of dollars in those accounts. So like David Miscavige has no one he can point the finger at to blame for why a project like this drags on for decades. So it will be interesting to see what happens. It's also interesting to hear that there's already a lot of discontent in the Mexican field about constantly being strung along about this new advanced org that they're supposed to be getting? Like, what was the reason the Mexican field was being given for why this project was not happening?
SPs, like land developers that were SPs, stuff like that. Just like
any specifics, like what was the problem?
They kept it simple. They kept it simple. It was like they won't let us go in there and renovate. The SPs, the contracts. Something's going on with the contract. That's what they would say. Something's going on with the contract. The developers or something, their SPs or something. We got to find a new developer group that's more not like less SP or something. Yeah. They never went into specifics. Yeah. And I think what it was really is just I think it just cost a lot of money to renovate, and in reality, like there really isn't enough money to renovate. Yeah.
Were the Mexican Scientologists being asked to donate towards the renovation of this advanced org, or were they told the IAS was paying for this thing?
Well, you had to donate to the IAS so that the IAS could pay for it.
Is that what they were saying? The IAS was funding the renovations?
Yeah, because that's why it's on the Impact magazine and
oh, of course.
And while I was there, 2 years that I was there, that was like the main project. There's little projects with each campaign. We're gonna hand out these pamphlets at such soccer game, and we're gonna do that. Those are little projects, but the big project is the AO, because the IAS has to fund new AOs.
Wow. You know, they're also trying to open a new AO in Canada, but that's also been stalled for 15 years or more.
Yeah, I saw the renders of that. Yeah, like log cabin style. It looks nice.
But can you imagine, like, you already know there's not enough Scientologists to occupy these buildings. I don't even know how those orgs paid their electric bill with, 15 public in New York. But like, now imagine you open up a new advanced org in Canada and in Mexico. It looks like expansion. It would actually kill Scientology.
Yeah. Wow. I never saw it like that, but that's just true, because it's like you said, it's cannibalizing everybody, the field.
Yeah.
I never even saw it like that.
Yeah. And it has other domino effects. Like, you put staff members into an org and you make them responsible for the stats of that org, and you put them in an impossible situation where the stats are so low that now they're going to start hunting around for the SP of who's keeping stats down. And then you have ridiculously unjust things that occur, and that causes people to leave Scientology. So creating this false fake expansion and opening up buildings and just assuming they're going to, if you build it, people will come. Having that strategy combined with a management style where L. Ron Hubbard says stats just don't go down, they're held down. It's a horrible, horrible situation. And it's why, I mean, look, David Miscavige is screwed. He's totally screwed. Okay, so you said the EPF took a few months. Is that a few months before they sent you to Copenhagen, or does that include going to Copenhagen to finish the EPF?
Right. So I finished the EPF in Mexico City, and then I was like getting ready to start my staff status 1 and staff status 2. Right. So that's like right before you get posted, you have to do sort of this, like a couple extra courses, and then you're officially, after the EPF, you're officially a Sea Org member. After you finish those courses, you're officially like, you can be posted now. You can get posted now.
You can be permanently posted.
Right. So then I was getting ready to start the staff status 1, staff status 2, and somebody from HCO in LA, IAS, she speaks Spanish. She's a Spanish speaking person. So she probably wasn't, I never asked her, but she probably was in Mexico also probably fixing some papers, so that when she was probably going to be one of the people who came to the AO, because she came to visit our office, and she was like the executive in town from LA, from INT, because that's our IAS.
That's your INT.
That's our INT. The LA
IAS, office is your INT. Okay.
Yeah, they call it IASI. Like in the building in LA, they call that IASI.
But that's IAS. Well, IAS Administrations. I thought IAS INT was on the. That's ISA, International Association of Scientologist Administrations. But your guys' INT would be on the ship, right?
It used to be, but when I joined the office, that was one of the things that they taught me, teaching me about the history of the IAS office. They were like, we used to be on the ship. Now our main base, sort of like flag used to be on the ship. Now it's in Florida. Now IAS is in LA.
Oh,
That's the administrations, right? So it's IAS Administrations. So like if somebody's posted in that office, their title would be Assistant Fundraiser IASA. My post was Assistant Fundraiser IAS LATAM.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so stick with me here.
Mm-hmm.
There was a woman who was the president of the IAS, and she was a captain in the Sea Org. And her name was Janet Light or Janet McLaughlin. I'm going to get it mixed up. Anyway, she's out of, I believe she's out of the Sea Org now. I believe she's out of Scientology now. But the head of the IAS used to be, as far as rank, sort of equivalent to chairman of the board.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering now if there is a president of the IAS, and if there is, does that person work out of LA?
Yes. So there is she's the person who would call every week to do the on the phone weekly meetings with like all the offices internationally from all the different continents. I just don't remember her name. But she's the one who would do the roll call for everybody. And I remember that like to me in the office was that she is David Miscavige's right hand person. Like nobody tells her what David Miscavige tells her what to do. And then she tells us what to do. So that's why the IAS is like a different branch. It's a different, it's like, it's not above, with the way I looked at it, it's not above the CLO, but it's like next to it and slightly above. So because like it's just different.
Yeah.
But it's right next to
Yeah, they're not above it
COD.
in terms that they can't issue orders to it. But they
kind of. The one
ahead.
order that we are allowed to issue, we are allowed to, like as an IS member, you can tell Sea Org members as an order to do a cycle, to do a fundraising cycle. If they have like a better communication and connection with the public, as an IS member, as an IS staff member, your responsibility there is to like, hey, I need you to like help me tag this person. And they are obligated to do that.
Right. Wow. I remember asking you this when we were chatting privately, but I don't remember the answer. Were you ever aware of either the statistics of the LA office or the statistics, the worldwide IAS statistics?
When we would do the monthly meeting, they would mention like the commendations, like let's say UK, the UK office is has been up for the last 3 weeks. So give it up for them. Everybody would clap, right? So it's kind of like that, very general. They're either up or they're down, or they hit a quota. They had a $100,000 quota. They hit the quota this week. That's when they would tell us. But if it was like, for example, we were never mentioned. Nobody ever heard about IAS LATAM because there was nothing good to say.
So that monthly meeting, was that a monthly meeting? Like, was it a conference? Are you talking about like a phone call?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to say weekly. Yeah, the Thursday weekly meeting.
Okay. Was it a phone call?
Yeah, it was a phone call.
Did it have all of the IAS offices on that call from all over the world?
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy shit.
They would do roll call. They'd be like, UK here, Africa here, LATAM here. They would do roll call with everybody.
So is there an IAS office in every con? So you've got East US, West US, LATAM, Africa, Canada, Europe, ANZO. Did I say Africa already? There's Taiwan. Is Taiwan part of ANZO? I don't even know. I think it is.
Yeah. But
was
ANZO
there a separate? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, I think all of the continents do have their own their own continental IAS office, except ANZO. I don't think they have one.
That's weird.
Yeah, I'm just like never heard that in the roll call. Australia, they would have said Australia. Never heard that.
What about, so not Taiwan?
No, not Taiwan. Even though the
And
Taiwan Ideal Org was funded by the IAS.
right. Yeah. So was there no office on the ship that was represented on that call? No free wins?
Did they say free wins in the roll call? I don't think so.
Wow. I think you'd remember.
Yeah, I would definitely remember that. So yeah, no, I don't think they just moved off the ship. Now they're LA basically. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wow.
It's West US and East US.
Right.
West US, East US, Canada, LATAM, Africa.
Yeah. So they never discussed dollar figures on the phone call?
Only quotas that were
Or
reached as the goal.
cumulative dollar figures.
No, not even that. Because then people could do the math and they could see that LATAM only made $500.
So there were literally weeks where you guys would literally raise a few $100s.
There were weeks where me, myself, like I would just do zero. And then next week again, zero. And then next week again, zero. And that's the worst nightmare for a Sea Org member. You're a traitor. Your whole office is looking at you like you're a fucking traitor.
But I thought you personally weren't responsible for fundraising. So
yeah, it got really silly. It was not on policy at all, the IAS office. Because for like to start off, you're supposed to post from the top down. So if there's no fundraiser, I should have been posted as a fundraiser first, and then the next person who got recruited to the IAS office, then he would be posted under me. So you're supposed to post from the top to the bottom, but they posted me at the bottom. Don't know why.
I mean, look, the fact that there's a seven-man office and not a single one of them is on post as a fundraiser is just really hilarious.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Okay, so I see. So you finished your EPF, took you a few months, then you were going to do your staff statuses, and they couldn't send you back to the US to do them in English, so they sent you to Copenhagen, Denmark. That sounds super exciting.
Yeah. So it was very exciting. I got a 21-hour break on the airplane, watching movies, sleeping, flying over the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, so that was good. And it was very exciting. Once I got there, it was very different. And I was kind of like, it was a sigh of relief a little bit because, like I said, from going from Blue Base, LA, everything is ideal and perfect. Well, not anymore, but it's supposed to be. And then you go to Mexico, and like I said, I see the birthings, and I'm like, oh man, this is not so good. But maybe it's just Mexico. When I went to Copenhagen, that sort of confirmed that, because Copenhagen had just recently, like maybe 2 years before I got there, Copenhagen had just opened a new birthing, and this was an ideal birthing. And this birthing was amazing. It was like great for a Sea Org member. Everybody had 1 hour free time at this birthing. Well, unless you had to like stay at the org and do some overtime thing. But mostly, if you're okay, you're doing good, you would have an hour. A lot of people would just sleep that hour, because if you don't take that hour for sleep, you get 7. If you take that hour for sleep, you get 8. Sometimes I would just go sleep. But it's a ideal birthing. They have like a pool table. They have a little recreation room. They have the snack bar downstairs. You got to pay for like what they call it, the
canteen.
The canteen downstairs with yogurts and stuff. So you get an hour to sort of sit with your friends on some like couches. There's like a recreational area with some yogurt, crackers, chat, play cards or something. And the best part is this birthing is like 2-minute walking distance from the beach, basically on the beach. So sometimes I would get off post. I would go to the beach, go take a dip in the water, come back to the birthing, take a shower, and go to sleep. And it like, for a Sea Org member, that's amazing. That's like the most fun you could have. And also, CMO in that birthing had a mini golf course. What? And anyone could ask if they anyone could use it, but you had to go to someone from CMO to ask for the balls and the golf clubs. And no one dared ask for balls and golf clubs to anybody from CMO. So nobody ever played mini golf, but they had a little mini golf outside.
Wow. I'm surprised that that they didn't end up keeping you. that's usually what happens when a Sea Org member gets sent off to some of the base. They're like, we're not letting them go. I mean, that sounds like Sea Org paradise.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it was also immigration stuff. Like, you know, you only have 3 months. I was there for 3 months on the day. Like the day before, I was like, hasn't it been 3 months already? And they were like, oh, shoot, you got to go tomorrow. And I had to go because otherwise I wouldn't be able to go back. So they're like, as long as eventually they were going to send me back because that's where I could progress up my studies the fastest. But never happened. They tried to send me to the UK once. They tried to send me to the UK to the IAS event in the UK. So it must have been 2019, October 2019, IAS event in UK. But when I flew again, I took, 21-hour flight, amazing little vacation for a Sea Org member. You get to watch movies and sleep. And when I landed in the UK, the immigration office actually denied me entrance to the country and deported me from the UK. So now I have a deportation on my record. Well, I guess I got other, like, also overstaying my visa and stuff on my immigration record.
Do you think their denial was because they could somehow see that you had been in the US illegally?
Yeah, 100%. That's what they told me. They were like, look, honestly, you're here you have everything you need to come in. You have an invitation. You have a Mexican passport. That's all you need to come in. Because I had the invitation to the event, and that was supposed to serve as my pass to get into the country. Like, they just need to know what your purpose is. My story and everything. I told them everything. I told them that, yes, I have a bad record in the US, but I was a kid. It's not my fault. So what the guy told me was, look, honestly, like, we would let you pass because you're like everything's straight, but the system is literally red flagging you and won't let you pass because we share a system with the US immigration system. So it's the same system. So if you have a red flag over there, you have a red flag in the UK.
Wow.
So basically the US didn't let me into the UK. The UK, they would have let me in, but the US system red flagged me.
Incredible. It's also incredible that the Sea Org officials didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But then you get a nice vacation on the flight home as well, right? You get 2 vacations.
I got to spend time in the immigration, like they basically lock you up, but it's a nice cell with like benches and chairs and tables. And there's like 3 or 4 other people there who are also getting deported. So something happened with their visa, wasn't correct. Or one guy had like the wrong date on his visa. He was supposed to come in the next day, but he came in a day early and they deported him. So like, it was kind of fun. We were like, just like a band of misfits getting deported. And we were like in a cell for a night for like a whole, like 12 hours. So I had no cell phone, no communication with anybody. I was just supposed to get picked up by somebody with a sign at the airport. And the immigration officers there at the airport took his contact and they told him, hey, look, we're not letting him through, so you can just go. So they did know what was going on, but it was sort of like I was like a free individual. No one was in my ear. No one was telling me anything. I didn't have to be anywhere.
You're literally detained and locked up, and you're like, this is a vacation. I'm free.
I was a free man in that cell. It's a literal cell. Man. I was locked, like they lock it and everything because you're getting deported. They don't want someone to run through the airport to avoid getting deported. So they lock you up. They lock you in there, and they let you out. I was
a free man in that cell. That is an amazing thing to say.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the reasons I like traveling so much is when I was in the Sea Org, they would send me off to this org and that org every now and then. And I just remember just the feeling of being in the airport is just, I'm fucking free.
About to fly.
I don't have to worry about anything. Like, it's honestly just a feeling of exhilaration, just sitting in the airport being like, I'm free. I still feel that way. I love traveling. I love being in airports. I love planes.
Yeah. And I was happy about it because I didn't want to go do fundraising cycles at the biggest IAS event that there is. I didn't want to do that. So for me, it was like better that I was going to get another 20-hour flight, another 4 or 5 movies. and then go back to Mexico and be like, well, I'm sorry, I tried.
It's like, I would rather be detained and locked up and be deported than have to go fundraise at the IAS event.
Yeah. Oh, and it wasn't like I didn't know anything bad. I just was nervous to do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather fly and watch movies.
Wow. Okay. So, do you happen to know how many years it will be before you're eligible to return to the United States if you wanted to?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think if I get a lawyer, he'll help me just like clear my record because I was a child, I was an infant. So
But
if
even
I
if
just
you don't get
make
the
a
record
petition,
cleared, even if you don't get the record cleared, though, is there a certain amount of years that go by where it's sort of wiped clean?
yeah, it's supposed to be 10 years. I've already been gone for 5, so 5 more years if I want to do that. If I want to come back, because like maybe one day I'll want to go to New York and visit or something. I could do that.
That's a long time.
Yeah, but I think I'm gonna get that expunged. Like eventually, I would like to go visit maybe Miami or LA again, and I'm not like super interested in going back and working or living over there right now, but I do want to go and be a tourist at some point in the U.S. again. And when that day comes, I save up for a trip. I'll save up. Part of that trip is going to be saving up for a lawyer to do this petition. And I've sort of looked into it, and it's a very simple and fair petition. I was a 4-year-old. You can't like put something on my record when I was 6 because of a 2-year visa. So once I was 6 years old, we overstayed our visa. So at that point, they red flagged me as a 6-year-old illegal in the U.S.
I see. Okay, so you go, you do your staff statuses in Copenhagen. Did you finish them, by the way?
Yeah. I finished like right on time.
You go back to Mexico. Now we've already talked about this, prior. Your whole story of kind of what got you out of the Sea Org. It's kind of long. It's kind of complicated. It's a little personal. I don't know if you want to get into the whole thing. So let me just throw it to you. How do you want to talk about the time you spent in the Sea Org? How do you want to talk about what got you out of the Sea Org?
There's some things that maybe I don't really want to get into, but I could give you the whole like basically gist of it. Is I was reading the ethics book and I found something in the ethics book that made me think I need to get out of here because I had other responsibilities outside before I joined the Sea Org. Before I took on the responsibility of the Sea Org, I had other responsibilities, and it was something about that on this ethics book, the page in the ethics book. I got it right here. Latest edition.
I've got the same one sitting around
Isn't
here
it pretty?
somewhere.
It's beautiful. And so that's kind of what, like, they couldn't really argue with me about it because my argument was source. It was L. Ron Hubbard is saying in this book that I need to get out of here, finish like some things that I abandoned to join the Sea Org, and I got to go back and do that. So I called up my senior, the senior HCO person who would be in charge of these type of cycles. I called her in LA, and I found like a corner in the berthing because at this point we were all locked up in the berthing because of COVID. Nobody could leave the berthing. We turned the berthing into home offices.
Oh, wow.
And so we put more bunks. So we'll take like 5 floors. I don't know if it was 5 or 4, but let's say it's 5 floors. We would take the bottom 3 and put more bunks in those. And then the top 2 floors are supposed to be offices. So we made home offices out of the entire berthing. It was a nightmare. Nobody could leave. There was one person who was assigned to leave because he would wear a hazmat suit. When he left, he would get food and then come back with the hazmat suit. They'd spray him down with D7, which is a military level disinfectant. Spray him down with that and then let him come in. And everybody had to get out of the hallways so that he could walk through the berthing up the stairs to his personal room. He would get his own room, and he was the one person allowed to leave and come back. So everyone else was stuck in the berthing. So I called my senior. I looked for like a dark little corner in the hallways of the berthing, and I'm like, hey, I want to get out of the Sea Org. I want to leave the Sea Org. And the first thing she says is like, oh my God, is anybody listening to you right now? And I'm like, And I'm like, no, no, no. I made sure that I'm in a dark corner in the hallway of the building. And and she was like, Leo, this is in theta. You can't tell anybody that you want to leave because it turbulates the Sea Org people and they're important and you can't tell anyone. And then I was like, yeah, I knew that. I got it. That's why I called you directly. And yeah, basically they tried to convince me not to leave. But I was just dead set on leaving. There was probably there definitely was like a culmination of reasons why I wanted to leave, but I had to find argument that they couldn't fight against. So the argument that they couldn't fight against was this responsibility thing in the ethics book. But I just didn't want to be there anymore. Like at that point, I was like, I don't want to be a veteran Sea Org member like my senior and be here for 40 years. I would see him like FaceTime his family in Italy. And I'd be like, man, like this guy, he's probably never going to like see his family again.
Oh, he's Italian?
Yeah, Italian. Giuliano Introzzi.
Was he married?
He was married. That's another thing. I was like, bro, what about your wife in Flag? She's like HCO in Flag, and he hadn't seen her in years, like 6 years. And I'm like, how are you even just still here? Like you get berated every Thursday because your office is a failure. You can't see your wife, you can't see your family. I don't want to end up like you. And that was going through my head as well. But I couldn't say that during my routing out form. I couldn't say those things. I couldn't say that I hated it, or hate is a strong word, but that guy was an asshole. He was a complete asshole. So I really didn't like him. But I had to say, oh no, me and my senior, no, we're fine. Everything's fine with my senior. Because because then they would go into a whole cycle of what did you do to your senior that makes him an enemy to you? And now you want to look at you. Now you want to leave the Sea Org just because you're doing something bad to your senior. And obviously that bad thing would be neglect because I was getting zeros every week. There was no money. There was nobody. I would talk to like 100 people a day and get zero because it was all phone calls. And it was just all people that haven't been in the org for years. So I'd be like, hey, I'd have to tell them like what's been going on, what's new. And hey, well, why don't you come back? And you know, the important thing is these humanitarian campaigns because this and that, whatever. And but you can't get money out of someone who hasn't taken a course in 5 years and you're trying to convince them that the fourth dynamic needs more survival. Doesn't work.
Yeah. I just thought of a question. It's not the question I wanted to ask you, but it just popped into my head. So if you're working for the IAS and you're being given lists and lists of names and phone numbers to call of members, presumably members in good standing, members who have, I'm guessing, active IAS memberships. Like, what was the criteria for them to be on the list for you to call? Active IAS members?
Not even active. They had to be patrons or sponsors and above. So they had to be someone who had already donated $10,000.
Why not a lifetime member though? Why not a lifetime member?
That's not my job. That was the membership officer's job.
Oh.
My job was to make patrons. That was my job. I was asking for 20,000 at a time.
So here's the question. I'm trying to get an idea. How many individuals were on the call lists for the IAS?
Well, the lists were endless. The lists were just, actually, no, that's not true. There was other lists that were endless. The call-in list for the events, those were like all the members. So those lists were endless. But like the sponsor list would be pretty long, like 4 or 5 pages, pretty long, like tiny text. So there's like a lot of sponsors. Then there's Crusader. That list is a little shorter, maybe 3 pages. And then there's patrons. It's like a 2-page list. And then there's, the list just keeps getting shorter the higher you go up. And each list was based on the status.
So, but if we had to guess, are we talking 1,000 people?
I would give 1,000 people to like.
Would it be more than 1,000?
Yeah, it was more than that. No, it could have been around 1,000. It could have been around 1,000. Everything from sponsor and up could have like 1,000 different people that I would eventually.
And that's for all of Mexico and South America.
Yep, all of Latin America. Yep, South America, Mexico. There's at one point, it was like midnight, and we hadn't hit a quota, and they were telling us to keep calling and keep getting funds. Oh, there's a new thing the IAS is doing. There's a new thing called monthly membership, but where you donate a monthly, like it comes out of your credit card, like monthly, like Netflix. And so you could be a gold meritorious, right? But you're also a gold meritorious level blue if you give $10 a month directly from your, what do they call that? A direct payment. Or you could be like a sponsor, but you're level red. So there's different colors, and I forget the colors. The highest one was black, and that's like $10,000 a month. I'm like, who the fuck is going to be level black? Yeah.
I see. So the color coding is, the color designation is based on how much you're set to auto donate a month.
Yeah. So you have your main status and then your side status. And then the goal at that point when they ran this out was get everybody to have both statuses. So we were like, hey, man, you just hit patron last month, and we're still really happy about it. And congratulations and all that. Here's your t-shirt. But also, can you also do like $15 a month? You get this blue card. That's it. You just get this blue card. And then you're a blue member.
Wow. I'm just waiting for the day when Scientology starts to offer financial products. Like, they open up a bank and they start offering loans, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that might be a more successful business for them.
I know, right? Okay, so it's interesting so you're during the COVID lockdowns, you're calling your senior in LA, or one of them, and saying you want to leave. How in the world do you manage to route out of the Sea Org during COVID lockdowns? How do you do the routing form? How do you get the sec check? How do you do all that?
Yeah, so it was a long process because there's only one auditor who could sec check me. She had the sec check training or something like that. There's only one auditor there who could do that, and she had different PCs, and there were PCs that were like going up the bridge instead, not routing out. So she would prioritize them, and I would just be doing manual labor. Wow, I just realized that I was just doing manual labor like for 2-3 days, and then I'd get, oh, come on, we're going into session. And then I'd go into session with her for the sec check, security check, which is all part of the routing out. They just want to make sure that once you leave, you'll be basically on your knees to come back. Like, they break you down. And yeah, they make you need them. And that's what the sec checking and the physical manual labor is while you're routing out.
How long did that last for you?
3 months. 3
Wow.
months. Because I had nothing.
It's funny though, because well, they told you not to tell anyone that you wanted to leave other than the authorized personnel. But then when they take you off post and put you on mesh work, they are essentially telling everyone that you want to leave. They're telling everyone the thing that they already told you not to tell anyone.
Yeah, well, people could assume that I'm either leaving, or maybe I went out 2D, or maybe I'm in an ethics cycle because I'm not producing, and maybe they think that I'm doing that on purpose. So I'm a traitor, so I have to get it, like whatever ethics cycle. But yeah, I was definitely I was in the kitchen, or I was sweeping and mopping, and everybody would see me, and they knew that I was in trouble. But I couldn't tell them why I was in trouble.
I see. So they did take you off of post during that time. So you were on full-time messed work unless you're getting a sec check.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So 3 months of doing that. Go ahead.
I was also studying because at that time they wanted everybody to do the fundamentals from start to finish. So they were like, you're still going to do that anyway, because I mean, yeah, you're leaving the Sea Org, but you're still a Scientologist. So you might as well just still do that, because we want our statistics for the studies and how many books you finished. So I would be either on study, messed work, or in my sec check. So I was like the goodest little Scientologist on my routing out form. They trusted me too much. They posted me as the canteen IC when I was routing out on my routing out. Like, I got demoted from IAS to canteen IC, and they trusted me with the money and the products that I was selling at the canteen. Well, they're supposed to trust everybody. I don't know if in Copenhagen in Denmark, they just leave a basket out, and you're supposed to take a granola bar and put You know how much it costs. You put that money in that basket. They trust people. But in Mexico, LATAM, they don't trust people. So they need to have a canteen IC handling the money. And even though I was routing out and I was in an ethics cycle, because I was in the IAS, they trusted me with money. So I was a canteen IC. Now that I'm remembering now, I was a canteen IC, just physical mess work whenever there wasn't canteen time, because canteen time is specifically the food time. So when it's not food time and I'm not eating, I was in the kitchen preparing the food for everybody, and then cleaning, and then I helped with a little bit of electrical work. That's a great story. It's like a Tom Cruise style story, because I mentioned earlier that we were renting the berthing, and the bottom floor was not ours, but the bottom floor, the basement, has the electrical boxes down there. So we were doing home office, and we fried the system in the whole building. We had to go change something in the electrical box, but we are not allowed to get on that property. And if we ask permission, we have to explain to them that we overloaded the whole building because there's 50 people in here working and living in here. So we were like, so there's a camera in the basement, and the camera goes like this, right? It scans the area. So literally we're jumping over like some fence and like squeezing through like some fence as the camera like is panning towards us, like, hurry up. And we're like running into the basement. We hide behind like the basement. The owner was using it to store very beautiful antique vehicles. Like he does reparations on them or something. They were gorgeous. So we were like hiding behind the cars, the cameras sweeping through. And then the camera's moving this way. They were like, okay, go. And we like run to the electrical box, and then the camera's sweeping by again. And we're like, duck. And then we're like working on this electrical box as fast as possible, just ducking out of the camera's view. And I had absolutely no experience with electrical work. But I knew how to sneak around and climb fences and stuff.
Oh my God. They're like, we fried the system, so send some people down there who don't know how to do electrical to fix it.
Yeah, the guy I was with, the dude that I was with, he was the estates guy, and he knew all that, but he needed a hand. He's a great guy.
Oh my goodness. So your whole routing out process, did you actually finish it, or did they eventually just be like, just go?
Yeah, I did finish it. Like I got like I said, like I just followed the rules. I just didn't want any problems. I followed the rules. I didn't want any problems because I figured that I still wanted to be clear. I still wanted to go OT. I still wanted to come back eventually, go be a public. I wanted to be a patron. I was like, I'm making patrons, and now I'm going to leave and I'll become one, and I'll have my badge and my pin and my own t-shirt. And yeah, so I wanted to come back. So I just didn't want any trouble. I just left, and I did everything according to how they wanted me to do it.
Did you ever meet anyone in the Sea Org, whether it was while you were in the Sea Org, did you meet anyone, whether it was public staff or Sea Org, who were themselves clear or OT, who you actually thought, wow, this person seems to be kind of like the person I hope to be one day? Or was it the opposite? Were you like, you met an OTA and you were like, oh God, really?
Kind of. Tom Cummins, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to be like that guy, like,
oh, for real?
He's a big, tall dude, and he talks, and he knows what he's saying when he's talking, or he sounds like he knows he's saying when he's talking. And I saw him speak at an event, and I was like, man, that guy's cool. And then I overheard him. Never mind, I can't even say that. I overheard him talking about something that I was like, whoa.
You can say it. Unless you really have we talked?
I really think I can't. I really think I can't.
I think you can. It
was like,
is it just derogatory, or is it
that was crooked financial? No, he was like at a table with someone, like talking about like financial things and how he could sort of like get around getting some money moved around and stuff for the IAS. And it was clearly like, we're not allowed. That's all I overheard. I just knew that that's what they were talking about. There was music. It was at an IAS event, and that their table was next to me. So I just I was like, oh, they're like, that's fishy dealings. Like the way they're talking is fishy stuff. And I'm like, I thought Scientologists were just good people. And if you have the money to donate like Tom Cummins, then it's because you're a successful business entrepreneur, and all that is due to Scientology, because he's an OT, so he has the money. But no, it was like they were trying to like find ways to sort of evade taxes, something like that. That's what I understood, is like evading taxes in a way, or evading
So
something financial.
Tom was talking to someone about how he would do that, or he was trying to help someone else do that?
Trying to help somebody do that. Yeah. Another like big donor who's sort of like complaining about something. Tom Cummins was there to facilitate cycles. So he was like telling him how to do something and how to move money in certain ways. I just know that it was fishy because the way they were leaning into each other. And it wasn't like, oh, my business is doing so great that next year I'm going to give 10%. It wasn't not that. It was something else, but I didn't get the details.
So Tom Cummins is a bit of an easy example because other than the fact that he happens to be probably OT8, he's also, donated tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. So, but I'm talking about kind of your rank and file Scientologist who, you find out they're clear, you find out they're OT8, and you're like, then how come you are how you are? Like, because, you believed in the myth of full OT and OT8, and it's a big deal. I'm just wondering if you ever encountered people in your time in the Sea Org that made you be like, huh?
Well, I didn't meet too many OTs. I did not meet too many OTs. I always made a note like, that guy's OT, like that's awesome. So if I did meet any OTs, there's this one guy that comes to mind, but I don't think he was OT. The thing that I was like confused about it is he was talking about how he has been in Scientology doing courses in Copenhagen, Denmark, and in the UK at Ron's big house, St. Hill. He was telling me that he had been around since L. Ron Hubbard days and St. Hill, L. Ron Hubbard days. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And this and that. And he's talking to me about it. And the guy's not even clear. And I was like, well, what the heck? Well, what's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? And the guy just wasn't all there. He really wasn't all there. He had somebody like either his young family member, like either his daughter or somebody was like literally taking care of him, walking him around and stuff, because he was he talked too much. Like he was saying things that he shouldn't say. And then they would sort of like hush him down a little bit. But yeah, because he wasn't clear. So I remember thinking about him. There's another story about an OT8, and this is a couple, and this is a very romantic love story. It's a couple, two OT8s. They're in love with each other, two spirits in love. And I was about to say unfortunately, but in Scientology, it's not that unfortunate to drop the body. It's just dropping the body, no big deal, especially if you're an OT8. So the husband had recently dropped the body because he was confined to a wheelchair, and he was like, you know what, I'm just going to drop the body. This is the story that his wife was telling me. She's telling me that, he's confined to a wheelchair. He didn't want to live his life like that. So he dropped his body, and he's waiting for me up in the sky, somewhere between the moon and the earth. And he's going to wait for me, because for a Thetan, there's no time. Time doesn't exist. A Thetan can wait, and it's just a blink of an eye. So he's going to wait for me. I'm going to finish selling the house and stuff. And then when I drop the body, I'm going to meet up with him in space above the planet. And both of us together, we're going to fly down to Costa Rica and find a beautiful Scientologist family. And we're going to be in love and together forever. We're going to go. She was telling me, we're going to go into bodies that are born in the same neighborhood, so that we are not obviously in the same family, but we live in the same neighborhood, so that we can go to the same schools, find each other again, meet each other again. And yeah, he's not gone. He's just waiting for me up there. And to me, that was a very powerful OT8 love story. Like it's like, that's what real like OTs who still believe it. That's what they believe.
Do you remember about how old the guy was?
Yeah, he's pretty old, maybe 80. Well, his wife was around that age, so I assume.
Did it sound like when she got done selling the house and everything that she was then planning on dropping the body?
Yep. Like a Thetan, with her Thetan powers, he's waiting for me. So I'm just gonna, finish closing cycles, drop my body, and we're gonna start again. This is
So
one of
as
the
a
most dangerous.
relatively new Scientologist, what did it mean to you that she was basically saying she was planning on causatively dropping the body?
At that point, I just understood it. Like, yeah, the body's just a body.
But what did it mean to you? What did you think that meant was going to, like, how would that happen?
I thought she was gonna go to sleep one day and just not wake up.
Yep.
That's what I thought she was gonna do. Just like, okay, everything's sold, everything's ready. All right, here I go. I'm going to sleep. And I didn't think she was gonna take something or do anything like dramatic. I just thought that she could causatively, literally just disconnect. There's supposed to be a thread, right? And OT8 should be able to know how to snip the thread and disconnect and fly away. That's what I thought she was gonna do.
Yeah. Do you know if did you ever follow up with her? See if that happened?
No, I never saw her again. She wasn't a regular. She was just there, sort of closing cycles in Mexico City. I think she was probably from a different part of Mexico, so she had to like go to Mexico City, close some cycles, or probably finish some step on the bridge. And you know what? The auditors and the people at the HGC and the people at the org were probably like, okay, well, hurry up and finish these steps on the bridge. Give me your money real quick for these courses and whatnot, so that when you go do that, what you want to do, you can do it causatively and effectively.
Yeah.
So they're just taking her money, even after that.
You don't remember either of their names, do you?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Wow. Okay, so you finish the route out process. You leave, but you're in Mexico City, which isn't where your dad and siblings live. They live in, what's it called?
A different state called Jalisco. Yeah.
Jalisco. And your mom and her new husband are still living in LA, right?
Yeah, they live in LA. Mm-hmm.
Did your dad know in advance that you were on your way out of the Sea Org and would need a place to live?
No, not at all until I showed up at his door.
Oh my God.
They did not want me to tell anybody anything because they wanted for the very last second I could change my mind to maybe hopefully change my mind. So they were like, don't even tell your family, don't even tell anybody anything. Just finish the routing out form. Just finish the routing out form. And I figured, I was like, at some point in this routing out form, probably the last step is going to be like, please reconsider, or somehow, some way they're going to try to get me back. And they did. They offered me high positions in the landlord office. They tried to recruit me to CMO, even though I wasn't qualified for CMO. So they were like trying to offer me, in their eyes, high positions, and like, they thought, they were like, oh, you probably have a conflict with your senior. They all know how much of a monster this guy is. So they're like, you probably just aren't, getting along with your senior. And that's probably what's going on. So why don't you just join the landlord office? Or why don't you just, then they took me up to CMO and CMO, she's a woman here in LATAM. It's a lady, young lady, probably my age. Like, she's probably 2 years older than me. And she's a CMO. It's the highest position in all the CLO and all of LATAM, young woman who holds that position. So she was trying to recruit me to CMO. And I was like, I'm not even qualified for CMO. And she was like, yeah.
That's unbelievable. They're like, we know you're not qualified, but since you're trying to leave, would you like a promotion?
Right. I was like, this is so weird, because why don't you guys mention the things that matter to a Scientologist? Like, hey, why are you leaving the Sea Org when the Sea Org is the most important thing you could be doing? You're going to waste your life out there. They didn't even say anything like that. Like, I was expecting things. I was expecting them to tell me, you're being silly. This is, you're doing a body decision. Like, this is a single life body decision to leave and do other things. Remember that you are here as a spiritual being, an eternal, immortal spiritual being. And like, they could have tried to use Scientology to convince me, and I don't think it would have worked, but I was expecting them to, and they didn't do any of that. It was all just like, well, we got some candy here, or we got a higher position here, or we'll treat you better here. We won't yell at you so much. Like, weird. I was like, well, you guys, your arguments are even like throwing me off even more.
Wow. That's a very good observation. It's almost like they didn't truly believe in the value of what they were doing themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember the name of the COCMO?
I wouldn't dare to call her by her name. COCMO. That's
Oh,
her
that's
name to
right.
me. So yeah, no, I don't know her name. But
That's
her whole
right.
family is Scientologists. She was born into a Scientologist family. Her whole
Yeah.
family, I think they're all like crusaders or patrons or something of the sort.
I love that as an IAS staff member, you think of Scientologists in terms of their IAS status. That would never even occur
Yep.
to me.
Family
Oh.
patrons. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what happens with your dad? I don't remember us ever discussing whether your relationship with your dad was particularly good or bad, but what happens when you show up on your dad's doorstep with no advance notice? Like, that's freaking weird.
Well, so I notified my sister. So at that time, my sister, my brother, and my dad were living together here in Jalisco. So I told my sister when they allowed me to tell my sister, which was after I finished the routing form, and we were just at that point we were just figuring out how much money I would need for a bus, or if I needed a plane or a bus, or which one did I need. They were figuring that out at that point. So they're like, okay, you can go ahead and tell your sister, or tell somebody at your family or wherever you're going that you're going there. And so I told my sister, I just told her, I was like, hey, I'm coming over. I'm gonna be at the house in a couple days, and when the day comes, I'll let you know at what time I'm arriving. And yeah, it was like 2 days. I told my sister, and I said to her, I said, don't tell dad because I want it to be a surprise. So I wanted it to be a surprise. My dad, we've always had a good relationship. We always,
Okay.
yeah, I always knew that like I don't have to ask him if I can stay with him. He's my dad. So I just wanted to surprise him. And when I arrived, I thought he would be here, but he was actually out. He was working. He works like his job is he'll leave the city for like a few days and then he'll come back, and then he'll leave again for a few days and he'll come back. So he was gone when I got here, and when he came home from his work trip, that's when he saw me, and I was like, surprise.
Was it a good surprise? Was he happy to see you? We might have frozen a little bit.
Oh, I couldn't hear you there.
That's
Hello?
okay. We froze a little bit. Was it a good surprise? Was he happy
Okay.
to see you?
Okay, yeah, I hear you. Oh yeah, like it's for him, it was the best thing, like the best to have all three of his children living with him. It was
That's
good.
awesome.
And then my grandma, his mom, is our neighbor, like 2 houses down. My grandma lives 2 houses down. My whole family is from this small town. So the corner store right at my corner of my block is my uncle's corner store. My cousins work the store. Every day I'm like, hey cousin, hey auntie, or hey. So like there's family members. Like this whole block is half of it is owned by my family. House like either they live here or they have like a business on this block. So it was sort of strange because I felt like I was a Sea Org, like, I had read the flag orders and I had the Sea Org training, and I was this advanced being because a Sea Org member is OT, even if he's not OT. So like I'm going from that to like very humbled to, go over to grandma's for lunch, go and say hi to my cousins, say hi to my aunts, say hi to my family, like family, real family, not weird spiritual immortal Sea Org members that's supposed to be your family basically. So it was like, wow, like it was huge. It was a huge sort of I guess kind of a culture shock, because even though I was in Mexico, I was in Mexico City, and like I said, that's a whole different world. But yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. I was back in my hometown where I remember I would go down the street. I'd be walking down the street, and the neighbor would just wave at me and say hi by name. Hey, Leo Perez. Hey, Leo Perez. I'm like, how do you know me? Turns out he's my grandfather's best friend. Follows my grandfather on Facebook, my dad on Facebook, my mom on Facebook. Everybody knew who I was when I got here. It was crazy.
Wow. That must have been very strange for you, leaving the Sea Org and still thinking of yourself as a Scientologist in good standing. I mean, in your mind, did they give you a freeloader debt on your way out?
Yeah, but they were very. I mean, if you could be very lenient about it, they were very lenient about my freeloader bill.
How much was it?
Or they made a mistake. They made a mistake. I just realized they made a mistake. They only charged me for my EPF courses in Mexico because the treasurer only had that information. He didn't have the information for all my staff status courses that I did in Europe. So I actually still owe the Europe freeloader debt.
It's not illegal debt, right?
Yeah, I know. I actually never paid even the Mexico one. Yeah, it was $300 for the EPF courses.
Oh, discount.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, $300, great. And but I never paid it.
Good.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh yeah. How much money did they give you as your severance when you left?
$500. They gave me $500, which is that was like, for me, coming from getting, because in pesos, that's 10,000 pesos. That's like 5 digits. So it like feels like I was like, whoa, okay, thanks guys. I was like grateful. Yeah.
What was your understanding of what was the purpose of that money? What, was it just to help pay for your bus ticket or what?
To not do this, to not talk about them.
Yes.
Yeah. So come get me now. try to get me now. Oscar from OSA. If you come to my house, I'll take you out for some tacos. As my roommate.
Oh, he was your roommate?
Yeah, Oscar from OSA. Please come to my house. I'll receive you well.
What was his post in OSA? We might be lagging here a little bit, but what was Oscar's post in OSA?
I'm hearing you really chopped up. I can't really understand. The connection is.
All right.
Here we go.
We'll get through it.
Okay.
The way out is the way through.
I hear you now.
What was Oscar's post? What was Oscar's post in OSA?
OSA, they don't tell you anything. They're just like, I'm in OSA. We can't tell you anything. I didn't even.
He wouldn't even tell you his post?
No. Maybe he could have told me his post, but it was that was my understanding of my friend Oscar is like, he can't tell me anything because he's in OSA. That was my understanding of it.
Okay, so you leave the Sea Org, you jump into rural Mexican life with great family situation. What's the first little foray that you make into the world of former Scientology?
So I always knew that they warn you to not Google Scientology. Don't look up information on the internet about Scientology. And I self-policed myself, and I never searched anything up for like a year and a half. But then I was like, fuck it, why not? And I just Googled Scientology. And the first thing that I was interested in seeing, or I knew that I was going to look for some N theta, for some black PR. I knew that I was like, fuck it. It's not going to, what I thought was, it's not going to affect me because I was in it. I was a Sea Org member. I know what's real. I know what's not real. I know what's true. I know what's not true. So I'm going to watch this. And I was going into it thinking, let me see what these SPs are lying about. Let me see what they're exaggerating about. And yeah, supposedly I'm not supposed to see it because I can't handle it, but I can handle it. I was a Sea Org member. I can handle it. And that's how I went into it. I just watched, I watched the whole documentary film, Scientology Going Clear. And I was like, bullshit. A bunch of SPs angry because they had to pay too much. They couldn't make some money to go pay for their courses. And then they had to go expose their religion. What a bunch of bullshit. And I didn't believe any of it. The first documentary, I didn't believe it. I started watching the series, the show, the Aftermath show, which has like multiple episodes and just hours of just watching content. And I would just watch one episode and be like, bullshit, but maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, but it's just one. And then there'd be another. And then there's, oh man, I think something's going on here. And then there'd be another. And it was just very slow because I was slowing it down because I was self-policing. I had a little policeman in my head telling me that I'm about to look at some black PR and it's black PR. So don't let it get to me. And that's how I went through the whole show. But at the end of the show, at that point I was like, okay, yeah, I was duped. I was fooled. And I think it's in that show that somebody says it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince somebody that they've been fooled. And that is so important, because that is the quote or phrase that, like, I was like, okay, I've been fooled, and I'm having a hard time accepting that I've been fooled. And that's what the resistance is, but I've been fooled. So like I had to accept that I've been fooled. And then I started looking for real true information. So then I had questions like, okay, well, if that stuff is a lie, then where's the money going, right? That was one of my questions. And I started watching your channel was the first channel that I started watching just regularly. And you talked about, I mean, you were talking about all the court cases and all the lawyers, and I was like, wow, there's like 10 court cases ongoing, just all these lawyers that have to be paid for. That's coming out of the war chest. I know that's coming out of the war chest. That's what the war chest is for. And when I was in these Impact magazines, it's supposed to be a monthly magazine. You're supposed to get one of these every month. And maybe the first year, and maybe the first 3 months that I was there, we were getting one a month, but then we stopped getting them. And I was like trying to fundraise, and I don't have material to fundraise with. What are we doing so that I can show these people that we're doing something with their money? There's no more Impact magazines. I ran through with everybody who's in here, everything in the Impact magazine. They don't care about it because they've been hearing the same shit for years. And what's new? Like, give me more stuff. I wanted to have more material so that I could do my job properly and fundraise. And so, put 2 and 2 together. That's not where the money's going. Money's going over there. And that pissed me off. That lit a fire in me. And I started to think, you know what? I need to get my lick back. What that means that, like, they stole from me 2 years. They stole from me 2 years where I could have been making money. Before I joined the Sea Org, I was on the up and up. I was working, and I was building something for myself. And I would have considered myself successful because I was on the way up, and every month was getting better, and I was doing good. And so I was like, they stole that from me. I have to get it back. So that's my attitude now, is I have to help people. Hopefully anybody who recognizes me, hopefully they can reach out to me. I hope that they do, because I would love to just talk to anybody who wants to reach out to me. I had a lot of friends in Denmark and a lot of friends in Mexico. So I'm down to help anybody who needs help. I know what it is, and I want to be here for them.
That's great. What's the best way for people to reach you?
My email, probably. It's I don't know if you could pull it up, or should I just spell it out?
Oh, go, just say it.
It's Leonardo Perez Partida @gmail.com. It's my full name, my 2 last names, Perez, and Partida is PARTIDA. Leonardo Perez Partida. I'll say it in Spanish. Leonardo Perez Partida @gmail.com. They know how to spell it in Spanish. So,
and I'll put it I'll put it in the description of the video. That's actually, you made a really very excellent observation there, that the Impact magazine is supposed to be the monthly magazine of the IAS. And if they were really doing so many amazing things, and if Scientology was really expanding like crazy, and if all of these IAS funded campaigns, if things were actually happening across these 13 different initiatives, they would have something to write about. They would have something to publish about, and they'd have a reason to publish.
Yeah. Another thing about that is that I was friends with the shoot team. My passion in life is cameras and video work, and I would just hang out with them, talk about their camera and their sensor and the Sony and the this and the that, the audio and the lighting. That was my thing. So like, we would talk about camera stuff. I would talk to the shoot team a lot, and the shoot team, their job is to when there's an event where people are passing out Way to Happiness at the Olympics, the shoot team is supposed to go shoot so that they can make the Impact magazine. I was friends with the shoot team. They never went anywhere. So I was like, well, where are you guys? Because I would get the inside scoop so that I could have a better fundraising pitch. I would ask the shoot team, where are you guys going next? Because that way I can get the inside scoop on what events are going on before it comes out on the Impact magazine. And I thought I was like being slick, like being cool and slick, like getting ways to get information so that I could fundraise better. And they'd be like, well, I don't have anything planned for this week or next week. We don't know. Maybe they'll send us somewhere at some point, but we have no idea. And they just never went anywhere. So I figured nothing's going on. There's nothing is even worth filming and documenting. So why would it be worth fundraising for?
God, it's such a good point. It's such a good point. I want to pick your brain about a couple of things real quick. When I first started my channel, I was very, very conscious, overly conscious, self-conscious about whether my content would be viewed as overly critical or end theta by current Scientologists, because in my mind, I didn't want them to think poorly of me. I wanted, you're right. Like I was kind of overly.
I know exactly. Yeah. That's self-police, that little policeman in your head. Yeah. You wanted to get around him. Yeah.
And as the years have gone on, I have, I speak a little more derogatorily or jokingly, more joking and degradingly about Scientology, the OT levels, Xenu, David Miscavige, because honestly, I just don't give a shit anymore that much about what Scientologists think about me. And I'm just curious to get your perspective. When you first started watching my stuff, how did it strike you? Were you like, oh, he's really critical, but like just how did it strike you?
You did a really good job. I'll give you that, because I would have been that guy to be like, oh, this guy is just talking shit. He's just mad. I would have been that guy. So the fact that I was able to just binge watch all your videos, and I heard you mention that in a few of them, that you mentioned, like, I want to come off as someone who's not so critical because of that reason. And so like, I got it. I understood. And I was like, yeah, this guy, he's being fair. He's being fair. Especially when you added up, did the tally, and got the number 30,000 active Scientologists in the world. I was like, that is the most fair calculation, because it's probably more like 20. So that was like a really fair, super fair calculation. And I was like, okay, this guy, he's got good sources, and he's telling the truth.
Yeah. It's when I basically generously estimate 200 Scientologists around every org. Like, damn well there's not 200 Scientologists around every org. It's like 20.
Because I think when you did the math, you broke it down, you gave MEXCH, the ideal org in Mexico, or you gave Mexico like 200 or a number that was like a little bit more than what it really is. If you said 200, it's really like around 150 or something like that. So I was like, that's super fair. That's a very fair estimate. Yeah.
I have come to really enjoy describing the Sea Org as the fake space navy.
Oh yeah.
And I'm wondering how that strikes you. Or you're like, yeah, we did think of ourselves as like kind of the space navy.
Oh yeah. We were in charge of this sector of the galaxy.
That's right.
And the I didn't know about Xenu at all while I was in Sea Org, but I knew about the Galactic Confederacy. I know about those motherfuckers, and they're coming back. So we had to be ready for them, because they got spiritual powers.
What did you know as a relatively, I keep wanting to call you a relatively new Scientologist and a Sea Org member. Even after you were in the Sea Org for a couple of years, you're still a relatively new Scientologist. What did you know about the Implant Station and Target 2?
I knew about that. I don't know how I knew about that. That's definitely like Sea Org members talking. That's definitely talk, like people talking to each other that you're not supposed to talk about it. But you know who probably it was? It was probably, I had this, he was a friend, and then we got into a fight, and then he was a friend again. But I love this guy. He's a dude from LA. So he was a supervisor in the CLO. So he's a great guy. If you're watching this, dude, like hit me up.
What's his name?
To me. I'm sorry I forgot your name, but hit me up and talk to me, man, because I know that we've been through some stuff, but man, I care about you. I really do. And he's from LA. He's like exemplary Sea Org member. That attitude that you're talking about, he had that. And then he was very playful with it. So he'd like come into your office and he'd grab you by the shoulder and be like, yeah, motherfucker, what are you doing? What are you getting up to today? You know, like he's playful, and he was like, it kind of pissed me off sometimes, but because he was very physical, and he's a good guy.
So he liked talking about the implant station and stuff, or what?
I'm pretty sure because him and I had the interesting conversations, and like, you know, because he knew, because he was the soup, and he would come into our dorm room and just like, oh, we're talking about this, we're talking about that, and so he's a cool guy because he's a young guy, so we were all like around the same age, basically. That basically groups us together as friends, and yeah. So so he told me, or I don't know if he told me, but I'm just assuming. And I'm if I can bring him up, I'll bring him up in case he's watching. So, but I'm just assuming it was probably him. And what I knew then is, yeah, you have to be OT so that you can avoid that implant station. And if you're not OT, then you're just gonna get sucked in. And apparently it's like a pole, and it's like a sticky pole, and you get wrapped around the sticky pole. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I knew.
I wonder why that pole's so sticky.
Hey man, I don't know.
I'm not touching that one. Okay, what was your understanding? What was your understanding of why L. Ron Hubbard never came back, or did anyone ever tell you that L. Ron Hubbard was supposed to come back, or did you understand that he wasn't expected back?
I assumed as a public, like routing into the Sea Org, that he was going to come back because he's an OT, and I mean, he should come back, right? Like, why wouldn't he come back? Just keep going. Just like, they're not done with the mission. Why wouldn't he come back? So I just assumed that he was supposed to come back. But at some point in the Sea Org, I learned about Target 2. And it's like, oh, okay, so that's where he is. So he's at Target 2. And then his little message, I'll meet you down the line at the other side of the bridge. I thought that that down the line, the other side of the bridge, I thought that was going to be a cleared Target 2, because he's going to take care of it quick, easy. His Sea Org is going to be faster and better than our Sea Org, because our Sea Org is without him. His Sea Org is going to be with him. And so that's what he meant when he said down the line at the other side of the bridge. He meant that planet, that Target 2, that cleared planet. Eventually we can travel like it's a new airport, it's a spiritual airport. We could travel from this planet to that planet, and this one's cleared and that one's cleared, and just different sites to see and people to meet. And it's like kind of a beautiful thing.
Yeah. There's something else I want to say on that. But guys, if you're still with us right now, we're 3 hours into this. If you're still watching, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. The reason I'm fascinated about continuing to talk to people who've been in Scientology more recently about their understanding of this L. Ron Hubbard Target 2 thing is because when I first started talking to Mike Rinder about this subject, he was one of the people who, when L. Ron Hubbard died, he was one of the people who was specifically told L. Ron Hubbard was coming back. And when I told Mike, I was like, Mike, why were you guys all told something different than the rest of us were told? He was like, I didn't know you guys were told anything different. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know we were told anything different? And I'm like, I couldn't have imagined all the Target 2 stuff. And I went searching through all the references I could find. And he never specifically says, I'm not coming back. And Mike just never had exposure to enough normal ass Scientologists and never thought enough about the whole coming back thing. He didn't realize people didn't expect L. Ron Hubbard back. And I'm like, dude, what do you think Target 2 is all about? And he's like, I just thought he was saying that we would all go back off to Target 2 together. And I was like, that's not what that shit says at all. And when I went back through it, I realized it could be open to interpretation if you were already reading it through the lens of L. Ron Hubbard is coming back. because David Miscavige, honestly, when it got to about 21 years after L. Ron Hubbard died, Miscavige was getting a little worried that Ron was going to come back and he hadn't done some of the shit he was supposed to do. And
Yeah.
I keep talking about this in my videos all the time, that I can't believe the people in management thought this dude was coming back and all the rest of us didn't. And to be honest, I've never really interrogated anybody other than Mike about this. But when he was like, I didn't realize you guys didn't expect him back, I was like, what are you talking about?
Dude, that is some of the funniest thing. Just to imagine little Captain Davy just shivering in his boots because Ron is coming back. That's just hilarious.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
I forget what I was going to ask you about that. Okay, so when you left, were you worried about okay, when you reached the point where you realized or you started to feel that, oh shit, man, I've been being lied to? Did it cause you to have any sort of what I guess I'm just going to call like some sort of crisis of faith? Like, now I don't know what I believe or what I don't believe or what's true or what's not true. Or were you able to just kind of be like, well, that sucked, you know?
I think I'm still going through that crisis of, how did you just put it? Crisis of
faith.
Faith. Yes. I don't know. It's just like empty now. And it's sad because I had filled it before with stuff and studying and knowledge. And I had a little notebook that I was literally, I had faith. I had a faith in something. I had a belief in something. And it's just like, I just had to wipe it clear because I'm afraid to get duped again or something like that. Like, what if it's all just, bullshit? And especially because my beliefs before Scientology were Scientology beliefs. I believed in Scientology before I found Scientology aspects of it. So it's just like, to me, it's like, man, the whole thing, I was wrong when I was a teenage kid, and I was wrong when I joined the Sea Org, and I'm wrong, and I'm probably wrong still. And I just have no idea what to believe. But I'll tell you one thing that does help me a lot spiritually, and I feel it in my soul, is listening to gospel music. I love that. It really lifts me up. Like, spiritually, that lifts me up. And I'm not religious in any way, and I probably will never, settle into any religion because of that kind of like just crushing the faith that I had. But yeah, Kanye West's gospel albums.
Oh, is that right? That's right. He did a
They're
gospel
awesome.
thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
You mentioned that when you first started watching stories of former Scientologists, first Going Clear, then Scientology in the Aftermath, you had a reaction that I think all Scientologists would have, which is either it's bullshit or you're exaggerating it, or sure, maybe it happened, but that was off policy or out tech, or those were bad actors. That's not reflective. Yeah. That doesn't mean Scientology is bad. That means someone was bad to you. That's how all Scientologists would respond to those things. Like, okay, someone in Scientology did someone bad to you. That doesn't make Scientology bad. How has your perspective on this changed, where you no longer see it as just some bad people did bad things, but you see it as it was all bullshit? Like, how has your perspective on this changed? What is it that makes you now be like, oh, the whole thing's, it was all bullshit, I got scammed?
Because everyone in there is getting scammed. Like, everyone in there who believes what they believe. Hold on, I guess maybe could you ask me the question again? So I kind of lost my train of thought.
And I want to make sure I'm asking it in a way that makes sense. What is it that you see differently now? Like, how is it that now you look at it and you go, oh yeah, people are being scammed. I was being scammed. Whereas in the beginning, when you heard these stories, it was, you're either lying or maybe it happened to you, but it was just someone behaving badly and it doesn't make Scientology bad. But now your viewpoint on Scientology is different.
Right, because what you're saying is absolutely true. Like when you hear the first bad story that somebody got punched or somebody got hit, you're like, well, that guy, obviously, he shouldn't be there anymore. They should have fired him. They should have let him go and declared him an SP because that's off policy. But then you hear another story and that guy's still there. And it's another victim of some type of like traumatic abuse. And it's just too many examples and stories, like one after another. And the reason why there's so many stories is because every single person has a story, because everybody gets beat, even if they, David Miscavige physically beats his people. Everybody gets beat, even if it's not David Miscavige is physically beating you, but you get beat down as a spirit, as a soul, some way, somehow. And there's so many examples that, like, it's just, okay, at this point, I realize that that's what they do. It's not a bad actor. It's not a one-time thing. And somebody who was in there who was pretending to be a Scientologist, but was actually an SP, and now they're making a bad name for the whole thing. No, there's too many examples. There's too many of them.
Yeah. Did you observe anything like that during your time in the Sea Org, of people being physically roughed up or treated in kind of over the top, inhumane punishments and stuff?
I think I saw something once, and I think that I purposefully tried to forget it. I think one time I saw my senior, Giuliano, punch Antonio in the shoulder blade. Just, he got mad and he just went, and I'm like, did I just see that? Did I just see that? And I guess I just kind of was like, no, that did not just happen. And I kind of try to forget about it. So that memory's there and it's blurry, but I think I saw him punch him in the shoulder blade, and Antonio just turned around like, what the fuck? But Antonio just took it like, yeah, I deserved it. Like, he just took it.
I think one of the biggest points of cognitive dissonance that I reflect back on and I go, wow, is how Sea Org members, they're fed this propaganda that you are the elite of the elite. You are basically the special forces of the Galactic Federation. You are the most competent. You are OT, even if you're not there at that level on the bridge. You have by definition, you would have to have the highest ethics and have the most, you're taking the most responsibility. You have the most knowledge, responsibility, and control of the state of Earth, and you have Scientology in your hands. And yet we as Sea Org members were treated like pieces of shit who could not be trusted to not escape if we had 5 minutes of time to ourselves. Like, you want to talk about cognitive dissonance. You're being told how great you are. You're being told how much responsibility you've taken, but you're being treated like you're not worthy of the smallest bit of trust. Like, it's weird that it's not super, super obvious to us at the time that it's happening, or it seems like it's deserved, or it seems like it makes sense, or it seems like it's for security reasons. Like, there's always things that make it make sense. But then you go out in the real world that's supposed to be filled with all these out ethics DB criminals, and at any company in the world, you are given so much relative to Scientology, freedom and trust and respect and responsibility. But your average Sea Org member would look down on your average WOG and just think so little of them. But in so many ways, their lives are so much better. Well, in every way, their lives are so much better than your average Sea Org member. I don't know. Do you ever think about that?
I did think about that. And I have I remember like consciously thinking about that. And the way I explained it to myself being inside is, they're playing small games. We're playing the big game. So if we are the worst teammates in the game, it's still the big game. So we're all benched because we're not fucking good enough to be on the field, but at least we're in the game, the big game. They're playing little games. Them, owning a home, little game. Starting a business, being a successful entrepreneur, or just living a good, fulfilling life, small games. Those are little games. They're just playing little games, and we're out here playing the real big game. And one time, the COCMO, she got everybody from the CLO and the IAS office, because she had to actually specifically send somebody to our office because we're not under them. So they're like, we all have to, every Sea Org member in LATAM, emergency meeting right now. And the emergency meeting, she was just berating everyone for what's going on in Venezuela 2 years ago. Something recently happened as well in Venezuela, of course, but that's been going on for years. And she
You mean
said,
politically?
oh yeah.
But you're not talking about in the Scientology world of Venezuela. You're talking about politically.
And not just Venezuela. She said all of the every N theta thing that's going on, any conflict, all the crime statistics in all of Latin America are shit. In Mexico City, we have this and that and all this, and it's your fault. All of you are not working hard enough because we're the only ones playing this game and you guys are not working hard enough. And it's our fault that all of this is going on in Latin America. So then you can imagine there's people from Venezuela there who are listening to her and feeling fucking, I don't know, like extremely anxious or sad or broken about their own family back home, who she's telling them that what they're going through is their fault because they're not working hard enough over here. And I remember coming out of that meeting feeling like, here we go, let's do this, pumped, because that's what the point of it was, like guilt tripping you into go out there and make more money, go out there and sell more courses, get more people into session, because it's our fault that this part of Latin America, we're supposed to clear Latin America and we're not clearing it. And that's why the crime rates, and that's why the political conflicts and the dictatorships in this and that country. And it's our responsibility. That's what she made us understand. Latin America, or LATAM, as Scientologists call it, is, because nobody else calls it LATAM. Did you know that? No one in the world calls Latin America LATAM. But yeah, they love their abbreviations, and that's our section. We're responsible for this. This is our part of the game, and we're not playing the game. We need to get out there and do better. It's our fault. And I remember coming out of that meeting feeling like, holy shit, I'm one of the people who has the biggest responsibilities in this planet. I'm one of, like, Sea Org members are the most important people on the planet because they're the only ones that have the tech to clear the planet. And yeah, I came out of that feeling like that whole the whole world, like the whole Latin America is on my shoulders. And I need to go fundraise harder. And I need to go fundraise so hard that we get the AO open, because we need to make clears and OTs in LATAM. Because if we have clears and OTs in LATAM, then their children are going to be better educated and so on and so forth. And that's what we need is clears, OTs, and for us, patrons and gold meritoriouses. So that's what counts. That's our game. Even though
such a good story,
we're not touching anything. We're not touching nothing. All the money that goes to the IAS is being used to make it look like things are happening, and they don't even have enough things to show anymore.
That's right. That is such a good story to hear that happening, playing out in LATAM, because it is such a good example of the guilt trip that gets played at all echelons of Scientology. Whether it's David Miscavige screaming at the staff of the Int base that it's their fault that there was a landslide during the storm and it damaged a Scientology, building, so take that approach, that guilt trip. That story helps explain how Miscavige has managed to go all these decades without releasing OT 9 and 10. Because all he has to do, like, if the CMO LATAM can scream at 70 Sea Org members that it's their fault that there's political unrest occurring in Venezuela because they're not working hard enough to disseminate Scientology and get enough funds for the IAS so the IAS can fund these initiatives so that people can get up the bridge and we can get rid of everyone's reactive mind. That's the kind of stuff David Miscavige would say to, let's say, middle management. Let's say the COs of all the CLOs in the world. I'm working my guts out to clear this earth, and you guys can't even get stats up in your continent. I'm trying to release OT 9 and 10, and you guys are
Yeah.
bickering about the quality of the food, like that kind of stuff. That's a really great story.
Yeah, because to release OT 9 and 10, what they tell us to say in the IAS office is that we need that fourth dynamic to be calm enough for it to open. I never heard about the needing to have so many orgs or so many ideal orgs. I never heard that. What I heard in the 2 years that I was there was that is the fourth dynamic. And that's why like the IAS gets propped up, because the IAS needs to do their work so that OT 9 and 10 can release. Because the fourth dynamic is all humanity, so all the humanitarian campaigns.
So, okay, so if it was explained to you in that way, though, what was your understanding of how the IAS was going to make the fourth dynamic calm?
Literally just by each campaign does something different. So like truth about drugs, less people on drugs, growing up sober is calming the environment. The applied scholastic, is that what it's called? Applied scholastics?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, well, that one is for people to be literate. And if you take this applied scholastics materials to a place where literacy is low, you can raise the literacy rates. We have more people who are more literate, more sober, more because they have to get to a certain point. Humanity has to get to a certain point to accept the bridge. Once there's enough clears and there's enough OTs and there's enough, the crime rates have gone down to a calm enough state, then where was I going with that? Then it's just like it's sort of part of clearing the planet. It's a step toward clearing the planet, and it's a step toward releasing OT 9 and 10.
That makes sense to me. It also makes sense to me that they would tell the IAS, or their messaging to the IAS of what the IAS was doing to bring about OT 9 and 10 would be different than to, regular staff members, because the IAS, you're just raising money. If you're telling the fundraisers that you have to get St. Hill size orgs in order to release OT 9 and 10, the fundraisers might be like, then what the hell are we doing spending all of our time raising money instead of building orgs? But let me ask you this. It just occurred to me. Were you under the impression that when you said the 13 different programs, Scientology has its social betterment front groups, right? So you've got Narconon, Criminon, Able, which has applied scholastics, The Way to Happiness. Were you under the impression that the IAS funded all of those things?
Yeah, Narconon. Yeah. We opened Narconons, and then I learned that there's like a guy somewhere in Latin America who opened his own Narconon, and I'm like, why did he need to open his own Narconon if we're supposed to open Narconons? And if
let me
he
ask you
opened
this,
his own
though.
Narconon, yeah, go ahead.
The Narconon program costs $30,000 fucking dollars to do it. Why would the IAS need to fund anything? Those things print money.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was hearing something kind of choppy, but I think I heard your question. You said
we might have froze a little bit. What's the last thing you heard me say? We froze a little bit. What's the last thing you heard me say?
I think I understood you were asking me. It's paid. It's a paid for service. You have to pay to use the Narconon program.
It costs like $30,000 to do the Narconon program. Those things make tons of money.
Oh yeah.
So like for the IAS to fund it makes it sound like they're performing a charitable service. They make tons of money.
Yeah, it's like a luxury rehab center, but it probably doesn't.
So what would the IAS have to? What would the role of the IAS be? I'm not challenging you. I'm challenging the ridiculous notion that the IAS would ever claim to fund Narconon.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I was under the impression that people could somehow apply through an alternate route if they needed financial help, and that's where the IAS comes in. And like
that the IAS would subsidize certain people to do the Narconon program.
Yeah, and that was just like I had to like assume something logical. So that was completely my imagination, that I was like, well, maybe somehow we're helping some people get in, and the ones who don't have money, or maybe we're just paying for the building and the renovations and the material, because you need materials, you need the uniforms. Maybe we're just supplying some aspect of it, and then the whole operation of the building has to. Well, you definitely need a supervisor there. You need maybe a receptionist. Maybe with those two people you'll be all right. But yeah, you need to staff the building and everything. I was like, maybe some parts they pay for with what they're getting paid for the people who are applying for the program, and then another part is us. Like maybe we just set the base or set the foundation, and then the rest is paid for by the people who use the program. But I just had to make an assumption that something logical was going on there, because that is one of the 13 campaigns that we claim we fund, the IAS.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So you didn't have any concept that in order to release OT 9 and 10, the existing Scientology orgs had to achieve the size of Old St. Hill.
Yeah, that concept that I never got. Maybe it was going around still, but I never heard it. So that was definitely new to me. And maybe because I was in IAS office, like it was more beneficial for me to believe in our part of it, the IAS part of it.
Right. Had you ever even heard the phrase Saint Hill size?
Oh yeah. Because there's the birthday party, the birthday game, and all that. Yeah, so I understood that. It's like a Saint Hill size is like a technical term you have to clear in the technical dictionary.
But the whole time you were in the Sea Org, they never declared any orgs as being St. Hill size, right?
No. Yeah, no.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. Well, we've been going for 3.
There's the only reason I knew about the ideal orgs is the FO that's supposed to be like what an ideal org is, but it has nothing to do with the ideal org program. But there's like there's a policy on it, because the policy talks about how everyone's supposed to be like friendly and happy and like positive, and it's supposed to be a positive experience. That's what makes an org ideal, not the pretty building, not the nice chandeliers or the nice lighting and the displays. That's not. It was never in that policy. Right. But I did. But that policy mentioned St. Hill size, so I did know about. I knew about St. Hill size because of that.
Right. Okay, so you got into Scientology about 6 years ago. You were in the Sea organization for 2 years. You spent time in Los Angeles, Mexico City, and Copenhagen. Before you started watching YouTube videos, had you ever heard of Shelly Miscavige?
No, I had no idea who she was. And when I first heard about like she's missing, I was like, she's just an executive. She doesn't want anybody to see her, so that's why she's missing. But it's been like more than a decade.
Yeah. It's been closer to 20 years. I think 2000. I always get it wrong. Sometimes around 2004, 2005. Did you have any concept of whether David Miscavige was married, or if so, who he was married to?
No, I just never thought about it. I just never thought about it, about whether he had a wife or not. I just figured that he's just too busy to have a wife. That's what I figured.
Had you ever, while you were in Scientology, heard of Guillaume Leserve, or ever heard of anyone being executive director international?
No.
Did you ever wonder who was executive director international, or whether there was an executive director international?
No, I never did.
Because the same birthday game, LRHED, that talks about St. Hill size and the birthday game talks about the International Management Executive Committee and Executive Director International. Did you remember looking those words up, or ever wondering, this must be old, this must not apply anymore?
Yeah, so there's definitely like I could see, I don't remember specifically, but I can definitely see how that was like a technical term that when I define it, somewhere in the definition it says that this post doesn't exist anymore, but this post was this. So somewhere in the definition, it probably would let you know that it's a post that used to be this.
Wow.
And back in them days, they had that post, something like that.
Wow. Your whole time in the Sea Org, had you ever heard of Heber Jensch, the president of the Church of Scientology International?
No, never heard. That post president? Nope.
Had you ever heard of Ray Midoff, the senior case supervisor international?
No.
Had you ever heard of the post of senior CS int?
Senior CS int.
Senior case supervisor international.
Yeah, I think I would have probably figured that there had to be one, because all the CSs have to have an international senior. I probably would have.
But you never knew who that person was.
No, never knew or yeah, cared to see like who held that post.
Okay.
That post doesn't exist anymore.
It might. I mean, Ray Midoff is alive. He was senior CS Int forever. He just David Miscavige just doesn't. The only people he brings, all these people I'm saying, used to be the regular speakers at the international events alongside David Miscavige.
Yeah.
But then he took them all off of their post. Now, even after he took them off post, he would still bring them to speak at the events and pretend that they were on these posts. But eventually, it all just stopped. And now he brings on like Aaron Banks, who's, you know, I remember when she was still a public, and now she's like one of the people who speaks on stage. No one knows what a real job is. Who did you consider to be Scientology's senior executives?
Well, I always heard about like int management. It's like this. Now I know that it's that building that the live streamers record where they don't know how to drive into the driveway.
Now, technically, that building is middle management, but because there's no international management, you'll hear me talk about it now that is international management, but that's only because there's no international management.
So it's like considered like West US.
No. West US, the seal of West US is on L. Ron Hubbard Way. That building is the flag bureau. That's the flag bureau. That's senior HCO Int. That's senior qual Int. That's the Int landlord office. But But international management used to be above that, but David Miscavige dismantled it. It doesn't exist anymore.
The way I understood it is CMO is like they're the big dogs, and there's the watchdog committee that I never really understood. That's kind of above CMO, but it's part of CMO or something like that.
You're doing very good. The watchdog committee is basically the executive committee of the CMO. So in other words, the chairman of the watchdog committee is supposed to be the same person as the commanding officer of CMO International. So it's right. So it's almost like CMO Int has a committee under him. That is the watchdog committee.
Yeah, I understand.
So CMO Int and watchdog committee are kind of the same thing, except CMO Int is more than just the watchdog committee. The watchdog committee is the highest echelon of the CMO. So in the middle management building, the CMO unit there is called CMO IXU. CMO Int is senior to CMO IXU. CMO Int is supposed to be on the international base, but David Miscavige got rid of the whole thing. There's no such thing as the watchdog committee anymore.
Oh, well, I thought that, I guess I was under the impression that it just still existed. Just because when I had to clear the word, it didn't say that they're not there anymore. Usually it says they were a post or they were this or they were that if they're no longer there. But I think it was that one when I cleared it, it was just defined as what it is. And I assume that it's still around.
So, but that's the thing, Leo. The things that I'm saying David Miscavige has dismantled, he could never admit that he dismantled those things.
Right.
Because those are the things L. Ron Hubbard said are supposed to be there. There's no reference that David Miscavige can pretend to find that would justify dismantling those international structures. He just got sick of everyone and decided he was surrounded by a bunch of evil SPs and he had to do it all himself, and he just eventually got rid of everybody. So that's why I was asking you, who did you think were Scientology's senior executives? You said CMO Int and the Watchdog Committee, but did you know of any people that you thought were, other than David Miscavige, were Scientology's most senior international managers?
I didn't think about any like people or names of people or specific people, because it's just like I was just off to the side in the IAS. So I knew about the main executives in the IAS, just referred to them by their post, never even saw their face because it was always a phone call conference.
Wow. So your 2 years in the IAS, you did not know by name the person who was in charge of the whole IAS.
Yeah, I don't know her by name. I was just like, I was just way too below her. Like there's somebody above me, and then there's somebody above him, and then there's somebody above that person, and then maybe they're next to her. But I actually, the supercargo IASA became the supercargo when I was in the Sea Org. So I got posted and she got promoted to supercargo. And supercargo, she's the right-hand man to the main person of the IASA, the administrations. So international IAS. She's like the right hand HCO kind of person and personnel person for her. And I know her because before she became the supercargo, she was just she was like in charge of recruitment in the HCO for IASA. So she recruited me. And then she got promoted to supercargo. So that's why I know. And I remember being so like, oh, I don't know if I was supposed to congratulate her, but I was like, oh, that's awesome. Congratulations, sir. She told me she got promoted to supercargo. And I remember being like, I have a personal relationship with the supercargo because she's my recruiter. And she was the one who like facilitated those flights to Europe and to the UK. And I was always in contact with her because she was my contact. And then she became supercargo. So I did kind of know somebody big up there.
It is incredible. I mean, probably maybe more incredible to me that someone who was in the IAS, that things have gotten to a point where things are so compartmentalized that someone who was in the IAS for 2 years doesn't actually even know the name of the president of the IAS or who Scientology's international managers are other than David Miscavige. I mean, and that's no shade on you at all. It's amazing that is sort of where Scientology has come to, because it really used to be, I think we lagged there for a moment, but I think it'll keep recording my side of it. And, it really used to be that the senior managers of Scientology were people who were personally very well known to the Scientologists of the world. I mean, and particularly the Sea Org members of the world, because they're basically the leaders of the Sea Org. You know what I mean? Like, these were famous people.
Yeah.
And yeah. And a lot of them have left Scientology now, but the fact that the ones who are still there have become total unknowns to anyone that's joined Scientology in the last 15 years is, it's something. It's something.
Yeah. And another thing, just speaking of the supercargo and how it's so compartmentalized that there is like little to no communication directly from me to her, is that when I was routing out, I thought she was going to call me and try to convince me to stay because she was my recruiter. And that like, that's what you're supposed to do. The recruiter's supposed to help you not leave because that person got you in. But she never called me. I guess she just got too busy as a supercargo, and one of her juniors was in charge of the cycle, and it was like the Has was in charge of it, and she was the person I talked to, and that's what I'm saying. Like I thought that if it, like you said, if there really is the value of the Sea Org, then why didn't they try to not let me leave by doing the logical things like get my recruiter to talk to me, or and now, especially now that she's a supercargo, which is a really, really high post. And yeah, so like that was anyway, just a little thought there.
Yeah, I totally get it. This has been a great chat. We've been going for 3 hours, 40 minutes, man. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I'd like to thank everybody who's watching and who's been hanging in there with us.
Where can I think you mentioned when we spoke before there was a channel that you were planning on starting, and you created it, but there might not be anything on it. Did you want to plug that?
I'm not going to plug it yet, but I do want to say it here because I've been talking about it and thinking about it, and actually I failed to mention it to you. I mentioned you a different thing, but I want to do exactly what you do, and just take information specifically about LATAM and do it in Spanish. So now that I'm saying this on live on Aaron's channel, I'm gonna get started on that. That's gonna happen really soon.
That's
It's
awesome.
gonna be just news and exposing the lies, but I'm gonna do it all in Spanish. So
that's excellent. Well, let me know when you got it set up, and yeah, absolutely. And any other chats that you want to do, even short chats on different subjects, things that occur to you, just don't hesitate to let me know and we'll do it.
All right. Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thank you as always to everyone who watches until the very end, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
bye.
If you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click